You are now on board of the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU sports and entertainment. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of Wild Wayne and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization or company. This podcast is for entertainment, informational purposes, and the promotion of the HBCU sports landscape and culture only. Hit that subscribe button and follow that up with the like button, and we welcome all participation in the comments section. Last but not least, tell some other folks that this show is on. That's it, that's all. Strap in because this ride begins right now.
All right, welcome to the ride on a very special night. What's up, Blue?
What's up, man? Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. You know, hey, we did this thing last year and it turned out to be great. The feedback on this thing was great, so we wanted to do it again. Just before we get started, make sure you hit the like button tonight, plenty. Subscribe if you've never subscribed here. And also, my man Zoe, our guy Zoe, he's going to join us probably in the second half of the show. He called a little bit before. He's got a little bit of an engagement that he's doing, but he said, don't worry, man, I'll be there. So we going to get through it, man. We're going to get into it. 21 teams we covering, and we're going to get right to it right now with Tennessee State. All right. Last year, Tennessee State, they were 2-10. They did not win a game in Big South OVC, but it wasn't for effort. Reggie Barlow, as you see, enters his second season. Matt Leone, formerly of North Carolina Central and a little bit before that, Southern, he comes over as the new offensive coordinator. And Blue, somebody who's been saying nothing during the offseason chatter here, Cedric Thornton, moves up to defensive coordinator. He's been saying absolutely nothing. Jackson State fans, you know all about that. So I just want to kind of throw that up there. Oh, man. All right, so here's a recap of their league last year, of their year last year, okay? They went winless in league games, but they had two games where they lost by 1 point, like Western Illinois, and then, man, at the end against Charleston Southern, 7-6, man. Crazy, 7-6. And then here you go. You see they finished 124th in FCS in scoring offense. There are only 126 teams in FCS, ladies and gentlemen. 124th in scoring offense with 12.9 points a game. But a bright spot that they had was they were finished tied for 29th in total defense. So with these numbers, it makes you wonder what could have been if they had some better offense. So now you turn here. We got the key departures. Snap Reed, he's now at North Alabama. Devon Slaughter went to Kennesaw. Kendrick Rhymes, he graduated. Mr. Jamo, he transferred. Connor Ruth, another tight end, went to North Alabama. But Blue, where I start with you, we start with these key returners. Sammy Taylor was really the guy that they leaned on last year on that defense. And when you're talking about defense and everything gets started this year, you start with Sammy Taylor. Talk a little bit about Tennessee State from your view, and then some of these returners, and then we'll go with the newcomers on the next slide.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of mentioned it before. It really starts with that offensive improvement. I mean, they were arguably the worst offense in FCS football. And I mean, statistically, I mean, and also too, I mean, they didn't play like a super tough schedule either, which makes it even worse, right? Like you had games against teams that you should have been able to put points up against, and to only put up 12 points per game. I mean, that is unbelievably low. So it really starts with improving offensively, and it's probably a good thing, right? We always look at significant contributors coming back. We look at starters coming back. But I mean, I always ask every preseason, and people have different opinions on this, but is it good to have a lot of continuity from a bad team?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, right? If those guys grow up, but also maybe it's better to replace those guys. And they're replacing a lot of talent on offense, and that might be a good thing because it just didn't work last year. A lot of it started at quarterback where they weren't very good. But you mentioned how good the defense was. And yeah, Sammy Taylor, he'll even have a bigger role because you lose a guy like Micah Gay to Jackson, who was really their number one linebacker. That opens up a role for Sammy Taylor, who played really well last year. And I also think you can even extend it to the back end of the defense, man. Like Sincere there at safety, Byron Davis at corner. Like those two guys have a ton of potential. I really like Byron's game. I think he's probably arguably the best player on that defense. Had 2 picks last year. I think he had like 10 pass breakups as well. And then you talk about Jalen Price as a guy that really needs to elevate his game. He played well last year, but he's going to have to play a ton more snaps this year. It's probably in a starting role for them. And I thought they did a really good job bringing in some transfer portal additions to build around this solid core. But it really comes down to, did they upgrade on offense? And if they didn't, it's going to be another long season.
Yeah, so you talk about some of these newcomers. So Dalen Lee comes over from Winston-Salem State. And then you've also got Marcellus Tate there from South Florida. So you have those two guys with Byron McNair, who stays on from last year. Those are your 3 that are competing for that starting job there. And you've got Trey Berry, who is more of a rotational guy from Minnesota at running back. But I really like the reviews on these next guys. Carlos Orr Gillespie from Utah State and Jaden Holloway Jones. Jaden Holloway Jones from Lincoln, Missouri. Very big receiver, tall guy, coming from D2. And then you see Deshaun Carter. He originally was going to transfer to Bethune-Cookman, and then he did an about face, and now he's showing up there in Nashville. And they've got Thompson, Balogun, and then Justin Logan, who comes from Arkansas. So from these newcomers, mentioning these guys, what do you got for these?
Yeah, I think it's Dalen Lee's job to lose. I mean, you look at the proven aspect on like who's been a starter, who's won games, who's the award winner. It's Dalen Lee. And I don't think you bring in a guy with 1 year of eligibility, to be honest with you, to sit behind some of these other guys. Like I think Byron has a long way to go at McNair. Like I think he's a promising young talent, but I'm just gonna be honest, man. I just didn't see it last year. It just didn't click. And maybe he makes a big jump from year 1 to year 2, but I didn't see it. And Tate doesn't have a ton of experience in college, more of a backup guy. I think they brought Dalen Lee in and they're gonna let Tate and McNair kind of battle it out behind them. And you mentioned, I thought they did a really good job upgrading at receiver, but I'm actually a little bit more excited about some of their D line additions. You bring up
Yeah.
Deshaun Carter. I think he has a pretty high ceiling. And also, they brought in Richard Garrett, I believe, from Western Carolina as
Yeah.
well. Both those guys should probably find a starting role for them. And then the other thing, too, their offensive line was really bad last year. And
Yeah.
they have some returning guys. And it's almost like they graded out so poorly, Wayne, that if they start next year, it's almost a bad thing. Like, if you couldn't upgrade over them, like, did we do enough recruiting offensive line? You mentioned that they bring in Balogun from Southern Utah, Thompson from Campbell, and a few young guys that really weren't ready to play last year. They really need to elevate that offensive line. And so those are the ones that I'm kind of looking at is just can you upgrade at quarterback and can you upgrade at offensive line? I like Dalen Lee, but a lot of the O line's unproven, man. So that's going to take some time to gel. And you've got a big test week 1. Like you're not going to have a lot of time to grow up. You're going to have to grow up very quickly. And you look at Tennessee State's schedule, FAMU's early, Alabama A&M's early, Jackson's early. Man, like it's going to be, I mean, trial by fire for a lot of these guys next year, and they're going to have to pick it up very, very quickly if Tennessee State's not going to start out poorly.
Yeah. And he said Matt Leone will be there for only 2 to 3 years. Hey, well, listen. So, for me, I know that Reggie Barlow, he's going to get this team to play. He's going to get them to play hard. He's going to get it in the way that he wants to get it into, right? But here's where I go with them. All right. So I do think that they advance a little bit more than they did last year. Obviously, going 2-10 is not what you wanted. I think that I got them at 4-8. I know that they were picked to finish 7th in the OVC. I think they can be 3-4. The swing games for me, obviously, is Western Illinois And then Charleston Southern, I kind of, I went a little bit further. I know Charleston Southern's supposed to be a little bit better than they were last year. And then Eastern Illinois is picked to be at the bottom. But you talked about that beginning. You talk about Jackson State at Georgia and then both of the A&Ms. But I think that best case, I think that they could possibly get to 5. And worst case, they could be the same as they were last year. What do you think?
I mean, okay, so if we're talking real worst case, I think it's
Yeah.
1-11.
Okay.
I think Eastern Illinois at home, if you don't win that game, we're talking about like, man, we're really in the dumpster at that point. But I agree with you. Like when I did my record predictions uh on another show, I think I came out at 4-8 with some possibles,
Mhm.
and I actually don't like. This is the thing: is Western Illinois is actually my dark horse in the OVC next year.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
gonna be really good, man. They got the freshman of the year coming back at quarterback. They signed another top portal class. Like, that team's gonna be really good, and that's on the road. And how beat up are you after that opening stretch? Because you gotta think that's, what, 4 consecutive road games to open up
Yeah.
the year
Well,
outside of Jackson?
yeah. Yep.
Man, and then on top of that too, like, let's just say you flip that Western Illinois game, there's a real chance, Wayne, that you're winless going into mid-October coming home for homecoming for Morgan State. Real
Right.
chance.
Yeah.
And that's just if games are 50-50. Like, there's a path to be winless. I actually would probably flip Western Illinois and say, like, they get one of the A&Ms. Like, it feels like they're gonna find a way to get one of those. But
Mhm.
if you can get Western Illinois, man, like, you talk about your best case being 5-7, that Western Illinois game is massive, and so is that Morgan game. Because I don't think you're beating UT Martin with what they have. Charleston
Mm-mm.
Southern's a gettable game. Lindenwood on the road's a bit tough. Like, you're gonna have to catch some people that people aren't expecting you to get. But yeah, I'm with you. I think somewhere in that, like, if we're being realistic, 4-8, 5-7 is probably the ceiling, and then like the floor is somewhere like 1-2 wins, in my opinion. Because I do think if you get beat up early, Wayne, like, this thing could get real off the rails if you don't have any momentum going into conference play.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we got on Tennessee State. So now let's progress over to the Hampton Pirates. Van Malone, I had the pleasure of speaking with him here on this program before. Uh, really, really good guy. Comes with 23 years of assistant coaching experience. Spent a lot of years with Chris Kleiman there at Kansas State. First time ever as a head coach. So last year they were 2-10. They were 1-7 in the CAA. Well, sorry, 0-8 in CAA. That's a misprint. They were 0-8 in CAA. Their 2 wins were Elizabeth City State, where they had to come back and win that. And Norfolk State had 20 penalties in that game when they beat Norfolk State. So, as I have it there, they were winless in CAA play. They had 7 of their 8 losses were by double digits in CAA play. How bad was it last year, Blue? They were very bad on both sides of the ball. 113th in scoring defense and 108th in scoring offense. They couldn't run the ball, and they darn sure couldn't throw it, and they definitely could not defend the pass. So that spelled Trenton Boykin seeing the door. And honestly, they were very lucky to get the 2 wins that they did, because this could have been 0-12 easily, right? So some of the key departures, all right, and they had a lot of these guys were from the defensive side. Now, Christian Greenlaw, if there was a bright spot last year, I thought he was their best player, and he ended up at Iowa State. But some of their returners, Cam Sturdifin, he's another one of those guys that was pretty serviceable in the back end on the defense for the DBs. And then Grayson Goldsmith at running back and Marshawn Ferguson, receiver. Those are some of the key returners. Obviously, when you have a new head coach, you're going to have a lot of turnover. And then some of the newcomers, you get Jalen Woods, who comes over from Southern, Dedrick Borden, and then interesting prospect, Cayman Mathis from Texas Permian Basin. So let's talk about Hampton.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was on a Spaces with Josh from HBCU Nightly today, and we spent a lot of time on Hampton. And I think quarterback's going to be a big thing. Like, who's going to be that starter? You mentioned Jalen Woods comes in. They got some guys that are in the room that they're really high on. But I think it's going to come down to do they have any playmakers? And I spoke about this earlier, man. I just don't know what the playmakers around the quarterback's going to be. Are they going to have a guy that's going to pop out at running back? Are they going to have a guy that really carries a little wide receiver? Because you mentioned Ferguson, but at the end of the day, he produced well for like a rotational guy, but is he a guy who has starter upside? A guy
Mm-hmm.
that you can rely on in the big moments? I don't know. I haven't seen it, right? And we're gonna have to see if he can step out there. But for a new head coach, I was really surprised at how much continuity they really had like 19 guys that played like 200 plus snaps last year, a ton along the offensive line and defensive lines. I think their edge room is actually really good. I think it's like Sogsbian and then Nash both come back at edge. Both guys, I
Yep.
think they combined for like 14 and a half tackles for loss last year. That I think they have a solid foundation. I just still think it's a rebuild year, man. Like I really do for Hampton. Like this is a year where Malone comes in and he's got to stabilize the ship. You've replaced the talent on the ship, and then next year you can go out and sell. Like you're not ready to go out there and sell in the waters and do all that. Like you got to fix the boat first, and I think that's the thing is you got to reset the culture.
Yeah, yeah. He said, watch Jackson and Dugan at the wide receiver position. Yeah, I was looking at those names there, Adam. Adam's a Hampton guy. So yeah, I am with you on that, Blue. And this is where I'm going with Hampton. I got them at 2-10. Same record as last year, but I do have them getting on the board in the league. And Lynchburg, that is one that you can bank on. All right. They'll get that one. But
Oof,
as I
yeah,
look
if you lose to
through,
Lynchburg, it's a wrap. It's a wrap
yeah,
on
if you
everything
lose
if
to
you lose to
Lynchburg,
Lynchburg.
you can go 0 for 12, right? My worst case for them is 1-11. Okay, with that one being the only one. Now, some of the ones on the best case, obviously, I have Bryant. Bryant has been scuffling, as everybody knows, in that CAA. Um, Norfolk State, which is a rivalry game. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? You don't know about that. Um, Also the Battle of the Real HU. Who knows? We don't know. That could possibly be another swing game. And then the other one I looked at is obviously the North Carolina A&T game. But other than that, I've really looked all the way through this thing, and I don't really see any other pathway other than 2-10 for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I actually I think it's funny. I don't know. I think Adam was in that space. And we were talking about this. Is that like Bryant, I know everyone looks at the record, but that team beat an FBS team last year, and then their
Yeah.
starting quarterback got hurt, and he's back. So like they were rolling for a while, and they just fell off after the injury. And I actually think that maybe the better conference game for them might be Campbell
I
to
thought
get
about that
or
one
A and
too.
T.
Yeah.
Campbell or A&T feels like a little bit more winnable to me than Bryant. But if you're
Yeah.
going to get to that best case, Bryant's the must win. Because if you lose to Bryant, I don't see you getting to 4 any other way.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Norfolk as well. Those two games on the 12th and 19th of September have to be wins if you're going to hit that over under. I think 2-10, 3-9 is probably where I would have them somewhere in that range. I do think I think we had our CAA projections come out earlier this month, and I think me and Timothy both had Hampton last or
Mm-hmm.
tied for last. I think them and UAlbany. And funny enough, Hampton and UAlbany don't play each other. That's kind of a bad break for Hampton because I think they're a better team than UAlbany. It's just the way the schedules in the CAA work. But
Right.
you do have to kind of be happy that you don't catch like a Rhode Island in conference play. Like the fact you get to miss the top dog of the conference, and I do think that helps them a little bit. And you instead of that, you get the Campbells, the Bryants, even a Sacred Heart as well,
Mm-hmm.
and an A&T. Like you get to play some winnable toss-up games. And so I do agree with you that the best case is probably somewhere around 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, but one thing I know, Van Malone is going to give his heart to this job. So that's Hampton. All right, we go on over here to North Carolina A&T Aggies. All right, last year they were 2-10. They were 2-6 in the CAA. Sean Gibbs, second year on the job, and they needed to make these changes here. And on the next slide, everybody will see why. So Donovan Jackson comes over from UAPB as your new offensive line coach. Alvance Robinson is wide receiver coach, and Charles Cheek comes into the outside linebackers. When I was talking to Sean Gibbs during CAA Media Day, he spoke glowingly about Donovan Jackson and his expected impact. So you see, their 2 wins last year, they were they beat Hampton, which was crazy, fourth quarter comeback, and then Mr. Elijah helped them out with a punt return and a kickoff return in the fourth quarter to beat Campbell. But they had 4 second half leads in other games. Tennessee State in the opener, William and Mary, they had them on the ropes. They had a nice thing going against Maine, and they even had South Carolina State down at the half. But then, 7 quarterbacks played due to injuries. And this is something that was near and dear to Coach Gibbs' heart. He said this was embarrassing, considering we consider ourselves RBU. They had no 100-yard rusher in any game. First time since 2004. Also, they didn't have much offense, but their defense, they were really, really bad. They were 122nd, allowed 46 sacks. And also, they were last in total defense. Okay? They tied with Northwestern State for most touchdowns allowed. So they gave up 43 points, which they gave up 62 to North Carolina Central and 62 to Towson, right? So it could only get better in year 2 when you start with these guys. All right. Some of these departures, Coles, Mittman, secondary guys, Marquise Hood. But then you got key returners, Dillard, who was their leading receiver last year. Elijah Kennedy, he's got high billing in not just in the CAA, but also he was a preseason All-American as a return specialist. You've got Braxton Thomas and Kevin White. Kevin White started 8 games last year, and Shameik Blizzard was their second leading rusher in 2025. But here's where I'm going with this one. This is what makes the big difference for what they could be, Blue, is these guys that they have as the newcomers. You're talking about Ben Boulware, a 3-star incoming freshman recruit, okay? And then they went and loaded big time on that offensive line. So I'll let you take the wheel here about North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, you mentioned that Gibbs was upset that they didn't have a 100-yard rusher in any game. Like, people forget that Gibbs was the running back coach when they kind of took that title of RBU, right? And so, I mean, I think it wasn't from a lack of effort, right? They tried to run the football. They just weren't good up front, and injuries, man. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's what it kind of comes down to with A&T, Wayne, is can they stay healthy? It's been what, 2-3 seasons now straight where they feel like they lose all their key contributors at some point during the season?
Yep.
It can't keep happening. Is it strength and conditioning? Are you doing something wrong in fall camp and practice? Like, something's got to give. The injury bug has to flip to the other side for them, and everyone stay healthy. I like what they upgraded. I like that they upgraded across the offensive line. I think they brought in a few like non-D1 guys, KJ Spence, Dre Duncan, Stanley from Johnson C. Smith you have up there. Also Townsend from Arkansas Monticello. They have a bunch of non-D1 guys that should contribute. And on top of that too, like, it feels like the run game's going to have, like, they have some talented young running backs that just maybe weren't ready last year. Maybe they're ready this year, but it's really going to come down to who steps up at quarterback, man. It's been a while since A&T's kind of had a guy to stabilize that quarterback spot. They've had guys that showed flashes. They had guys that played well in 2-3 games, but they haven't had a guy just to step into that quarterback spot and play well for all 12 games. And that's really what it's going to come down to, because I do think Sean Gibbs is a good coach. I think A&T is more talented than they have been maybe over the past 3 years. Now comes the part. Do we see Gibbs coaching pay off? Do we see Gibbs recruiting pay off? And that's going to be the story here. At the end of the day, I think you can look at the overall record and expect A&T to improve from what they have been. But at the same time, it's really not. I still think this year isn't necessarily about the record. It's, do they look better on the field? Are they more consistent?
Right.
Are they in more games? And I think you started seeing that late last year. You talk about all the leads they blew. We've seen teams be close, year 1, year 2, and that year 3 is the step. I do wonder if Gibbs can get it a step closer and then prime next year for really the year they break out in the CAA.
Yeah, so here's where I'm going with this. I've got them actually progressing forward a little bit more, but really for me, it's really about the schedule, because they've got some winnable. The thing is, if you're going to get to 5, these are the 5 that, and you can even also, with my best case, 6-6, if you throw Campbell in there. But for me, like, you have to get the first game against Morgan State. Bryant is, as we talked about before, is a swing. Chicago State first-year program, you better win that. And then Hampton, and then Albany. Albany's got a new head coach. You play them at the end. So I have them actually going with 5 wins, and I think that they'll be able to compete and look better. Again, you said it, health, offensive line, all the investments you made in that. Can you run the ball? Can you protect your quarterback? But also defensively, you can do, I mean, anything can be better than what they did last year on defense. So that's where I think that this is a year where you're going to see some improvements from these guys. I mean, I know North Carolina A&T folks, you probably, you want to be better than 5-7. You even want to be better than 6-6. But for me, I think if you do a good 5-7 and you compete in some of these other ones, like, you better compete in that Aggie Eagle Classic, 62-20 and giving up 700 yards like you did last year. That's not it. You play Rhode Island. Can you compete with them at home? Like, how do you look moving forward to set this up moving forward? So what do you think? You think 5 is good? You think I'm all right there with this?
I mean, I think it's kind of realistic. I think I would still lean closer to 4 personally. Man, if they sweep Morgan and Bryant, then I think Campbell becomes a very winnable game. Like, it feels like I still think it's 4. I think, like I said earlier, they're going to be improved. I just don't know if they're there yet. I think next year is the year we see them kind of break out. But I do agree with you that the schedule lays out nicely, and maybe they catch someone I don't expect. One of the games you have a loss, like you mentioned, Campbell is a gettable game. I think New Hampshire, I don't think is going to be as good as they were last year, but that's still a big step up, to be honest with you. Monmouth has a new head coach. We'll see what they look like, but I think it really comes down, if you're going to get there, you have Chicago State. That's a check. It comes down to that last stretch there at Hampton versus Albany. If you sweep those, you're in a really, really good spot, because you feel like you can probably get one of those wins early, Morgan, Campbell. But I think I would have it closer to 4 right now, Wayne. I don't know if I'm there at 5, but I do agree that they're ceiling somewhere around that 5-6 mark. And I don't even know if a worst case is 2-10. It feels like there's 3 wins here. Like, I think I would put the floor maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah. Hey, that works, man. When you're down, there's nowhere to go but up. But yeah, man. So that's what we got for those 3, CAA and also OVC. So everybody, make sure you hit the like button as we go to the MEAC. All right, let's get it started here with the MEAC, everybody. So as you can see, this is the last time that each of them won a conference title. As you can see, 2007 for Delaware State. They got very close last year. And then you can see, you see as it goes, South Carolina State, all they did was just flipped it from 2024 to 2025. All right. Now, here's some of the top returning performers on offense. So as you can see, a lot of people, they left this league via either transfer or graduation. But you can see rushing yards, Randall Naughton of Morgan State is the leading returning rusher. He had 579 last year. And then Chance Peterson is your leading returner at wide receiver with 720. All right. And you can see as it progresses down from there. Now we go over here on defense. I really wanted to look at some of the other categories, but there's so much turnover now with transfer portal and things like that. This one had the most significant value of returners. So we got tackles with Isaiah Lawson, and then you can see tackles for loss. Man, you see South Carolina State cleans up the top 3 returners in that area of tackles for loss. And then I just had to throw an interesting stat here. All right, from last year, 4 of the 6 teams finished in the bottom third of the FCS in most sacks allowed. Right? Morgan State and Norfolk State had 33. South Carolina State had 37. And Howard was 117th with 38 sacks. All right. So I just thought that was interesting that 4 of the 6 teams finished down there in the bottom. All right. So let's go over here now. We start with Norfolk State. And interesting here now, they were 1-11 last year. But I'm going to show you when we get to the next slide how crazy this 1-11 was. Okay? Because people who look at records and don't necessarily watch the games, you will see how astounding some of these numbers I'm going to present are. All right? So Michael Vick enters his second season. And he made some changes. All right. Steve Adams, he was on the staff. He moved to defensive coordinator. Right. Ike Charlton, people might remember him. He played in the NFL for a while as a DB. He takes over D-backs coach. And then Marcus Gildersleeve is your new sports special teams coordinator. But also more important than this, I think that it was just a whole attitude and mind change that they needed there at Norfolk State. Okay, here's the recap. They held a fourth quarter lead in 7 of the 12 games. Okay. 1-11, but they led in 7 of those 12 games in the fourth quarter. 3 of their 5 MEAC losses were by 1 score. Now, here's why they lost. Plagued by turnovers. They were 107, tied 107 in FCS in turnover margin. But this is the one that is the biggest thing of them all. I've been in football a long time, as well as you have, Blue, and many of the people who are watching this. I don't think I've ever seen penalties this bad with one team. Half of their games, they had 10 or more penalties, and they had 20 of them against North Carolina Central. And 11 of their 12 games, they had at least 8 of them. And their lowest was 5 against Rutgers, a game that they lost 60-10. And then they were 61st in total offense. That's a mouthful that I just said right here.
The penalties are wild because they probably would get called for more against Rutgers if the refs were like paying attention. They probably just felt bad and didn't want to throw any more flags.
Exactly. So I didn't go into key returners. I didn't go into newcomers for Norfolk State. And the reason why I didn't do that is because I'll just generalize it very simple for me. This was, as I said before, this was a total change and a shift for Michael Vick. As you saw, it almost became, it was the hardest thing for me to ask him questions on Mondays on that MEAC coaches call because every game looked and sounded the same, right? But they've got a new quarterback that they're going to have this year. They've got new personnel everywhere. So before I get into the prediction, what do you see from this roster, and what do you see for change for them this year?
Yeah, I think they took a very different approach, right? You look at last year, kind of a star-studded portal class, a lot of names people knew, and none of it clicked. Like they were one of the few teams that brought in a big portal class that it just didn't work. It was kind of like in the incarnate word mold where they brought in a ton of proven guys and they just didn't gel. And a lot of it had to do with like I just don't understand what Vic was doing at quarterback. He's the only coach that I know that would start a kid, he would suck, they would bench him, they'd put in another kid who looked way better, and then every press conference he was like, "Yeah, we're still going to go back with Izzy." And it's like,
Right.
did we watch the same game? It was like it's like this kid had something over his head that he like had to play him to start. It cost him so many games because every single time that other kid had to come in and save him. I just didn't understand the way that he handled that. I thought they added a lot of proven non D1 transfers though, and for me, I like guys like that more so than FBS drop downs with no playing experience. Maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more of a risk in case they don't make the jump. And I saw someone in the chat. Izzy ended up in Idaho, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and he'll be a backup at Idaho because Idaho has their starter coming back. So he's not playing at Idaho, but that's where he ended up. But they brought in a ton of proven non-D1 kids. Like the one that sticks out, Brevin Caldwell from Johnson C. Smith at wide receiver, probably gonna be a star for them. But it's gonna come down to they have a quarterback, man. They got 2 JUCO kids in there that everyone seems to be kind of high on, and we'll see, right? Like this staff lost my trust right now. Like there's staffs that I trust that are just going to figure out quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I trust, certain OCs just to know what they're looking at, to know what they like. Anytime Willie Simmons had to replace a quarterback, I don't care who they brought in. To be honest with you, Wayne, I know Willie's going to find the right quarterback. You kind of say
Yep.
the same thing about TC Taylor. Like, he's just going to find the right quarterback. And so I just don't know if they're going to do that. I will say they probably have my dark horse for MEAC Defensive Player of the Year. And EC, I believe it's a two coming in from UNC Pembroke. I mean, the kid
Yeah.
was a D2 All-American, Conference of Carolina Defensive Player of the Year, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 6'4", like 230. And for people who don't know, like, I mean, this kid was signed with Virginia Tech, had an all-field situation where he had to go JUCO and won a JUCO national championship at Iowa Western and has spent the last 2 years being a stud at UNC Pembroke. This kid's legit, man. And he has the size, the athleticism, the game to really be a dark horse for me at Defensive Player of the Year. But in terms of the full team, I'll be honest, like, we saw this with Dawson Odoms, and I'm afraid to say they turned those close losses into wins, Wayne, because we
Yep.
saw Dawson Odoms every year keep losing those close games. And maybe it's a Norfolk thing. Maybe it wasn't a Dawson Odoms thing. I think
Right.
they'll be more talented, maybe a better team. But until I see the answer at quarterback, I still think I got to put a hard ceiling on what they're going to be.
So this is where I'm going. And again, my wins for them is dictated by the schedule. If you look at the 4 wins that I'm giving them, you better win these 4. I mean, Winston-Salem State, new head coach. Obviously, Torrey Woodbury was on their staff last year. Hampton, as we said before, new head coach. Chicago State, again, first-year program. And then Virginia Lynchburg. I looked through and wanted to really. I took a hard look at Robert Morris. I know Robert Morris won 3 games last year. But again, it's a road game, and do they have my do you trust that? Because I look at the Wagner game last year, and that gives me Wagner vibes with the Robert Morris, and then also in conference. I was looking at the Howard game at the end. I started to give them the Howard game, but then again, I don't know. So I've got 6-6. I mean, 6-6 is their best case. Maybe they pull off the Robert Morris and maybe they swipe Howard or Morgan State. But worst case, I think it could be 3-9, and that's 3-9. That's if they lose the Hampton game. But Winston-Salem, Chicago State, and Lynchburg, you better win those 3 games at least. So I don't know, man. What do you think?
Yeah, 4-8, 5-7-ish, because I do think they could probably get Robert Morris. Robert Morris has not been a good team. If they lose to Robert Morris, man, there's a chance they lose to Hampton. There's a chance they I mean, like, then you're really looking at that worst case scenario of 3-9. Because I don't think there's any way they go. If they go less than 3-9, Vic's fired.
Right. Yeah, he said, do they have him on a short leash? It could
now,
be.
listen, okay. The thing is, though, is like, how much does Norfolk really care about football? I don't think the leash is super short. He's bringing in a ton of money. They care about the attendance, the revenue. I don't think they fire him unless if he goes less than 3-9, though. I think the conversation changes. If you lose to Winston-Salem, Chicago State, or God forbid, a Virginia Lynchburg, it's a wrap. Like, you can't be the head coach at a Division I program and lose those 3 games.
Yeah,
You just
absolutely.
can't. So I think if he goes 3-9, he'll be fine. He'll be back next year. But I think 5-7's doable, man. Like, I think that's probably maybe where I would have it. I say 4-8, 5-7. I'm with you. 6-6 is going to be tough. Like, you're going to have to find a way to win one of those conference games. And the problem is that, I mean, it really comes down to Howard, right? Because that's really the only swing game you get at home. I mean, unless Delaware State takes a big step back, which maybe I think they take a step back, maybe not that big of a step. So I'm with you. I think 4-8, 5-7. I do agree with you here.
All right. Yep. So that's Norfolk State. Everybody watching, make sure you like the stream now. Like the stream, everybody, as we go to the Howard Bison. All right. Ted White entering his first season. Last year they were 5-7. Larry Scott decided to take his talents to Auburn to be their new tight ends coach. And he took a very talented tight end, Xavier Newsom, with him down there to Auburn. This team last year, they battled. Their record could have been better than what they got, but yeah, they were 5-7. So you look at the people that left the program, and you look at who's coming back. A lot is hinging on Eden James and his health. Last year, he missed almost the entire season. Let's say for 1.5 games. So he's back. Travis Kearney, he kind of emerged last year. He's back. Jay-Sean Scroggins was the backup last year to Tariq Starks. He's back. And Kedrick Green, probably their best player. First team All-MAC in the deep defensive backfield, right? And this is a little bit of what they had last year, right? They struggled on offense. Everybody who watched them, you knew they couldn't really throw the ball at all, right? They were 99th in total offense, right? 19 points per game. They only scored 31 touchdowns the entire season. They had a lot of low-scoring games. Like I said, 104th in passing. They were 35th in scoring defense, though. Defensively, they kept themselves in many of their games because of how well they did play defense. If you're giving up 24 points a game in today's football, if you have any offense, you should be able to win some football games. Where the wheels fell off for them, they started 3-1, and they had that fourth quarter 12-0 lead at Richmond, and they fell 13-12, and they were never the same since. So what are your thoughts on Howard here with the first-year head coach, Ted White?
Okay, so this is the team I am most torn on going into next year in the MEAC, because all the stuff I see on paper, man, like I think this team could be really good. Like I think their defense and like South Carolina State has a lot. Like so, take South Carolina State maybe out of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could probably have the second best defense in the conference. And I know that's a hot take with how good that Morgan State's been recently.
Mm-hmm.
I think this defense can be really, really good. I mean, they added some outstanding players from the portal. I look at Mass coming in from Stonehill, Gabe Stevens coming in from Eastern Kentucky. Like their linebacking core might be legit with Rodney Rome coming in from Townsend as well. I mean, they got some legit talent. The question is going to come down to quarterback. And do you trust Ted White to pick a quarterback? I think some people would say yes because of his history. But
Mm-hmm.
again, too, you kind of talk about the injury history. We talked with A&T. You got to get your stars healthy, man. Eden James has to stay healthy. Quarterback's got to stay healthy. And who really gets the starting job? Is it Jashawn Stroggins? Is it Isaiah Freeman?
Right.
I don't know. Like they both have shown flashes, right? But neither one has been consistent at the Division One level. And so
Right.
who's going to bring you the most consistency at quarterback? That's really going to determine how far this team goes. So I do think their defense is going to be good enough to win them some games that people don't expect.
Okay. So here's where I'm going with them. And again, like you, this was a very tough evaluation. Okay. I had a hard time evaluating these guys. I think their best case, because of how brutal this schedule is to start off, I think their best case could be maybe 5. This is, I mean, okay, they play Alabama A&M in the opener. That's an even ground game. But Richmond will be better. Then you go, I mean, come on, man. The next 2 is just, oof, like, come on. And then, I had Steve Weiss on here where we talked about the HBCU Go schedule. Steve Weiss said, man, he said, Wayne, I just hope we have healthy players when we play Hampton. He said, because of the previous 2 games. I think that they're better than Hampton. The Penn game, no. Morehouse, you better get that one. And then a couple swingers are Morgan State, and then I have them getting Norfolk. So really, I have them at their best case at 5 because, who knows what Alabama A&M is going to be. We'll talk about it when we get to the SWAC. But if you think about A&M, Morgan State, they could possibly pull 5. But this schedule is really tough for these guys. I don't know. What do you see in this one?
Okay, so this is what people don't get, right? Is like because we do over under win projections like on our audio version for every conference in the FCS, and there's always teams that are more talented than their record. And so what fans will say who just look at the record is like, oh, that team was trash. It's like, well, not all schedules are created equal. If they played the 125th strength of schedule, that team probably would be an 8-win team. But they played Indiana and Rutgers and Richmond and Alabama A&M and Penn. They didn't play Edward Waters and Tuskegee and whoever you want to say. Like, they went out and had to play a lot of D1 opponents, and those 2 FBS games really hurt the record. And so I'm with you. I think I would have it at 4-8. I actually think I have them potentially getting Dell State.
Okay.
Just personally. And I also think the Alabama A&M game is a winnable game. And I think that's a 50-50 game, because as much as people look at quad, and yes, early in the year, right, you always go with the better quarterback and like the team that has the least amount of questions at quarterback. And obviously quad brings way less questions at quarterback than what Howard has. But if you look at every other position, I think you could make an argument Howard checks more boxes than Alabama A&M. Just as a full roster, if you went from running back to all the way to safety at the defense, I think Howard might be more talented right now, more proven. And so how do you weigh the core? Because listen, a bad quarterback play in week 0 can cost a good team a game. And so that's where I get really torn. So I agree with you. I think it's somewhere in that 4 to 5 win range. Will say, though, I do think their ceiling is 6-6. I actually would bump it up.
Okay.
Because if you get A&M and you get Dell State, I think if you have that sort of momentum, like, I think you might be able to catch one other person.
Yeah. I do have them at their very worst case, though. That's where I have them. But defensively, that's why I said I was really, because a lot of this is about offense, because they were so bad throwing the ball last year. And I'm not sure, like, Isaiah Freeman is not a passer. If you watched him at Hampton, he's not a passer. He's more of a runner. Scroggins, when he was the starter 2 years ago, he turned the ball over a lot, right? Threw it in the coverage a lot. So let's see how this all translates. But I do have to, while we are talking about the MEAC SWAC Challenge, I have to hit this real quick.
HBCU football is back in the ATL on August 29th with the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff, presented by Toyota, representing the SWAC, Alabama A&M, and representing the MEAC, Howard, Bulldogs, Bison, the marching maroon and white, the Showtime Marching Band, the premier FCS matchup in primetime, with a kickoff trophy up for grabs. Join us pre-game for band jamborees, food, activations, and fellowship. For tickets and information, visit MEACSWACChallenge.com.
All right. Shout out to Mr. John Grant. All right. So here we go. We go to Morgan State now. And this one, I will say I had a lot of time spent on this one too, specifically after I had Damon Wilson on my show last week. All right. So last year they were 4-8, and he enters his 5th season. And Tate Levitt's now the offensive line coach, and Doug McKinnell takes over wide receivers. Okay, now this right here, last year, you talk about 4-8, man. These guys, this was crazy. Again, like you said, Blue, when people look at records, if you don't watch the games and you don't look at the stats, you don't know nuggets like this. They were in the top 1/3 of total defense. Okay, 41st in total defense, 39th in rush defense. You saw that bigly on display when they shut down Delaware State's run game. Okay. 76th in scoring offense, though, is where you saw that's what made the difference. Okay. They were right there in 13th in sacks. They got after the quarterback. Like, this was a very good defense last year. And 5 of their 8 losses and 3 of the 4 in the MEAC were by 1 possession. Okay. So they left a whole lot of meat on the bone, because it could have been the opposite direction. Okay. Instead of us saying a 4-8 team, like, it could have been, you don't get that Hail Mary against Georgetown, there's a win. You make that field goal against Delaware State, now you're looking at 6-6. So, but this is the departures. So they had a lot of those guys on that good defense they left out. Also, Raymond Moore, he transferred to UTEP. Some of the guys that they do get back, though, Malik Leatherberry's a very good player, very good, versatile slot receiver. Randall Naughton, he's not just the leading rusher on the team, he's the leading returner rusher in the entire MEAC. And then you get two guys who didn't play at all last year, Arturo Maddox and Todd Smith. And then Justin Perry was another really good, receiver for them last year. So let's talk about Morgan State, man. I'm curious to hear what you say about this. Oh, take yourself off mute.
My bad. I fat fingered it again. But I'll say this: they have been one of the most talented teams individually in HBCU football. That includes both conferences, SWAC, MEAC, Independence. They have underachieved more than any other HBCU in the country. I mean, the fact that you wasted Eric Hunter and wasted Elijah Williams and wasted some of the defensive talent that they've had is just, it's an indictment on everybody on that coaching staff. I mean, how have you let so much talent come in the room and just not won? I don't know, man. Like it's frustrating because everything you like watching it all on the field, you're like, man, this team should have won a MEAC championship by now. This team should have won 8-9 games before. Like that's how talented they've been. And what's funny is you look at some of the key returners and you have like the leading rusher coming back in the MEAC. He's not even going to be the starter next year because they recruited above him.
Yep.
Which is insane, right? Like they're recruiting above their best returning players, and they still can't find a way to win. Because you look at Todd Smith coming back, he's not going to be the starting quarterback. It's going to be Cameron Edge, who's coming in from Eastern Michigan, and I think they have the best running back. Maybe this might be the really really hot take of the show. I think they have the best running back in HBCU football potentially, in Jordan Barnett. Like that kid is a freak, man. Like, and I know he's coming up to the D1 level, so we'll see how his game translates. But this kid's like 6 foot, like 235, man. Like will run through people. And last year ran for over 1,000 yards and had a ton of touchdowns. And he's just a workhorse, man. Like even talking to some scouts said that if there's an HBCU player to get drafted, it might be him if he puts it on this year. So we'll see. I mean, he's already on draft boards. So that like they have all the individual talent. I like what they brought in on the offensive line. But again, this is weird to say, but the question mark's front seven for me. They have a ton of returning talent in the secondary, but when you look at what they've lost in that front seven, man, like it's not easy to replace guys like Gold and Eric Hunter, and they lost a few other guys that are going to be starters at other FCS or FBS programs. I think if the front seven comes along, they're going to be really good. But again, I talked about this with Norfolk. The coaching staff's just kind of lost my trust, man. Like, just no matter how talented they are, I have to factor in that they're going to lose some games that they're not supposed to.
Yep, and that's where I'm at, man. I love Damon Wilson. He's one of the really good guys out here. But again, I couldn't see really more than 4 wins for these guys. Lynchburg, obviously, again, as we say that again, you got to win that one. Robert Morris, I think because they have them at home and it's homecoming, I get that one. And then Howard and Norfolk State. I have their best case at 7-5 for some of the same reasons that you mentioned already. I saw the guys that they got coming in just like you did. And I think that if you get that stuff going, A&T, maybe Towson. I know Towson is somebody that they've been punching with them neck and neck. Tennessee State. Right. So, we could see this thing flip and go maybe 7-5 or maybe a 6-6. But again, it's about we've been saying it for a while, man. You got to put it together on the field.
I get okay. Like I guess my thing is like I don't trust the coaching staff, but with this schedule, anything less than 6 wins, I think he's got to go.
Yep.
Like, if you lose to A&T and Tennessee State, he's
Yep.
gone, in
Yep.
my opinion.
Yep.
Like, 6-6 is the floor, in my opinion, to save his job. Anything under that, we need a new staff in at Morgan.
Yep. Yep. I definitely believe that that's why I put the best case at 7-5. But it's like based off of the trends that I've seen from the last 3 seasons. That's where I landed on 4 wins. And it pained me to put them at 4 wins because I really do believe that they're so much better than this. But we'll
If they
see.
only win 4 games and they're right there with Norfolk and Howard, I mean, again, like, what kind of indictment is that? Because listen, their talent evaluation staff, their GM and everything, man, dude, they're bringing in talent. Like, they have consistently brought in some of the best talent in HBCU football. At the end of the day, if we're gonna have to start pointing the finger at who's causing these teams to underachieve. We've changed OCs. The defense has been really good, so it's not the DC's fault. Well, guess what, Wayne? Who's the next person to point at?
Yep. Absolutely. So, they're going to have a chance to prove it, though. So that's Morgan State. Everybody watching, make sure you hit the button, like the stream, everybody. All right, now we go to Delaware State. This is going to be a good one here. I like this. All right, 8-4 last year. They were so close. 4-1. They lost that deciding game at the end of the regular season at home to South Carolina State. Deshaun Jackson, second season at the helm. Key staffing change. Travis Clark moves to defensive coordinator. The rest of the staff is pretty much intact. Nemo Washington and Clinton Portis, all the rest of those guys, they're all still intact. But they made the change at defensive coordinator. Recapping last year, Deshaun Jackson was the HBCU Coach of the Year. They leaned on that running game big time. 291 yards per game on the ground, which was impressive, even though it fizzled out towards the end of the season. Last 3 games, teams started to figure them out a little bit. They struggled on defense, which obviously you saw why you have change at defensive coordinator. 92nd in total defense. And their second place finish was the highest in 15 seasons. So definitely got the arrow pointed upward. Some of the key departures, replacing that running back room. Marquise Gillis was the leading rusher in the MEAC last year, had over 1,000 yards. James Jones was right there at almost 1,000 yards. Caden Bennett is out of eligibility, and you saw a changeover in their offensive line, right? Their offensive line was really good. Obviously, it would have to if you run for the yards they did. Brian Bates is a pretty big loss for them, man. He was a really good defender for them. And then Najee Lolly, he graduated. Now, some of the key returners. Wayne Favors, DB, he comes back. Then you got Saray at quarterback. Marquis Adams, who did not play last year, he's back in the program. Takai Wallace, and then Jaden Mifflin. Those are some of the key returners. And then I got some of these top newcomers. Sean Boykins from Louisville. CJ Abel. You got some of these key guys, some good guys here. But for me, where I'm at, Blue, I've got questions big time at quarterback. So I'll let you take the wheel here on Delaware State.
I will say Clinton Portis is gone.
Okay. All right.
At running backs coach, like he's not on the staff from what I was told. So new running back coach comes in. I forget the cat's name that came in to replace Clinton. But man, like you say, you have questions at quarterback. I have questions literally everywhere.
Yeah.
they have no returning talent. Like that was like in terms of a full position that I feel like I could just check off a box. I don't check off anything for Del State. And I think one thing that you go back and evaluate where you missed on teams, and I didn't think Del State was going to be as good as they were last year. And I think a lot of it is I overlooked at all the continuity they had on the line of scrimmage. Man, they had a ton of offensive linemen that have been in that program for a while, and it gelled. You mentioned some of the 2 running backs that were there, studs. I mean, I'll be curious to see who steps up at running back because they have the kid from Jackson that they got. What was it, 2 years ago? Was it Nate Boykin? that
Yeah.
was a top recruit coming out of high school, man. I'm very interested to see him. You mentioned Wayne Favors at defensive back, but again, like, man, you look at quarterback, and I think that was the question last year. Jaden Saray played okay last year, but man, we haven't seen Marquis Adams in what, a year
2
and a half, 2
years.
years?
Yeah.
Man, that is a long time to be dormant, man. Like, can you step up and be the guy after taking off 2 years? I don't know. That would be a question for me. And again, was this a flash in the pan, or was this something that he's really building something special up at Delaware State? I think that's going to be the question mark.
Yeah. And, for me, I had a real tough evaluation with this too, because, they came from, I'm not going to say they came from nowhere, because when you saw them in the very opening game against Delaware, you saw what could be. So this is where I landed with them. I had this thing at 6-6 for the longest time. And then I made the switch on the Towson game, but I had it at 6-6. And I have their worst case at 5-7. Stony Brook in the opener, Billy Kosh with Quinn at quarterback. I think they're going to be a pretty good team this year. William and Mary, Mike London, he's going to be, that's going to be tough playing him on the road. You got Bowie. You look at some of these games, man. I think North Carolina Central gets their lick back this year. I don't know. I got them at 7-5, 3-2 in the MEAC, but I had them really. I was really feeling more of a 6-6, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm closer to 5-7 than you are. I think their floor is lower than 5-7 too.
Okay.
If all the new pieces don't gel, and also I think we've kind of hit on some of the other MEAC teams. Like, everybody in the MEAC improved. It felt like, especially some of the bottom teams, like we talked about Norfolk, Howard, Morgan bringing in talent. It's like all those teams are going to be super competitive. I don't know if I get, like, winning Towson would be the tough one for me. Like, I don't know about that one. But I mean, we'll see that. I mean, they beat. Listen, they were more competitive than we thought in out of conference last year. I
Right.
think, if you're asking me, I think 5-7 is my record, and I think I actually think 6-6 probably the ceiling for me, and I think
Okay.
3-9, 4-8 is the floor. I just think there's so much, like, there's so many question marks, and if you're relying on a quarterback that hasn't played in over a year, I do have a little bit of concern there, and I think they have a lot of turnover in the trenches at running back, and just the lack of continuity gives me a little bit cause concern. I think that's going to keep them from reaching that 8-4, 7-5 mark.
All right. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. But yeah, a lot of question marks there in Dover, Delaware. All right, let's go to the North Carolina Central Eagles. All right, Trey Oliver entering his 7th season. Got a lot of change, man. Chris Barnett, me and you, we both talked to him last week. Chris Barnett comes over from Alabama State to take over at OC. We said earlier in the program, Matt Leone, he departed and went to Tennessee State. Tommy Thigpen is your new defensive coordinator, and Charles Bankins moves over to be the special teams coordinator. All right. Last year, they were 11th in passing in the All EFCS. Walker Harris was a really good quarterback for them. They had those 2 close home losses to Delaware State and South Carolina State. Defensively, led the nation in sacks with 45. But a lot of the people that they had, part of that 45 sacks, they've now left the roster. But this was the thing that really, really killed them. Tied for 115th in turnovers. Fumbles and interceptions really sunk this team last year and kept them from getting where a lot of us all expected them to go a year ago. All right. Some of the key departures. I talk about Walker Harris, Chris Mosley. There's a lot of talent that left out there. Right. Some of the key returners, they're expecting Chance Peterson to take a big step this year. Chance Peterson is one of those guys that can take the top off of defense, right, at wide receiver. Mekhi Wall is another guy, slot guy, but he also can bring you a lot in the return game. AC McMoore, a good guy on the offensive line, and Isaiah Lawson is a guy that they're going to look to step up there at linebacker this year. And then here's some of their key newcomers. I'm very intrigued about Ples Lawrence, running back from Indiana State. Big physical guy, 230, can really carry the rock, man. Kobe Thompson and Nelson Lane, they're going to join that quarterback battle with Sean, who they picked to be first team all league. And then KJ Lyles, another intriguing prospect, and then also DeMarcus Elliott, Kentucky State. So North Carolina Central, Blue.
It's going to come down to that quarterback position, man. Like, who's going to win that job? Because they've been, really and truly, you look, they've had the two best quarterbacks in the MEAC since what, like 2019?
Yep.
You had Davis Richard all that time, and then Walker Harris for 2 years, and so it feels like this is the big kind of tipping point for this program, and I think that's why you see Trey Oliver kind of talk about how important it is to get this one right. And the problem is like you look in that room and there's just nobody that has played significant snaps in college. Like you have a bunch of high potential, low experience guys, and so that's going to be the big question. I think Joshua Jones, just if you're asking me, probably has the advantage here. But I'm curious to, also running back. You mentioned Ples Lawrence. I like him, and I'll say the other name that's kind of flying under the radar a bit is Zion Dobson, who was a freshman last year for Central. People don't remember this, but he was the South Carolina Gatorade Player of the Year at running back, and he has just insane potential, man. As a senior, man, had 2,500 rushing yards and 40 touchdowns as a senior in high school coming out. 5'10", 180, kind of out of the mold of the running backs that have been super successful in this system. They have plenty of talent at wide receiver. I trust them to get the O-line right. But then you also mentioned the D-line, man. Last year was probably the better defensive lines that they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And, man, you look in that room, again, we talk about quarterback, a bunch of high potential, but not very experienced guys in there. So I think we're going to find out very quickly what this team's about, because you look at their schedule when you flip over here in a second, and man, the first game of the year, I think they're more talented than Texas Southern. But if you don't think Texas Southern's going in that game thinking they have a chance to win, that's a big growing up experience for a new quarterback on the road against. And I don't think maybe this is the wrong word for Texas Southern, but they're just they're like that grimy team that just hangs in there. You're probably never going to blow them out, and they're just going to turn that game into a slugfest, man. And for a young quarterback in his first start, you know what happens in close, ugly, grimy games? One or two turnovers or one or two plays can alter the result of that game massively. And so I think it's a dangerous situation right now for Central, man. This is probably the most uncertain I've been on this team in 5 years.
Yeah, so I know Trey said, I'm tired of going 8-4.
Yeah,
I'm
he did.
Sorry, Trey. I got you at 8-4 again. And I do think that they can get the Texas Southern game because of and we'll get to the SWAC here in a minute. Yeah. But I look at the other games here, Gardner Webb, we talked about them earlier. You're playing them on the road. Gardner Webb is going to be an intriguing team there in the OVC. William and Mary, we know about that one. But it's today, is this team ready to contend with the South Carolina State? Because for me, I think that based off of where everybody else is, maybe Morgan State too, but I just don't think that, like you said, I don't think that North Carolina Central, I think 8-4 is right where I have them. I think it's their best case. I think their worst case could possibly be 6-6. I think they're a good team, but they're not good. I don't think they're going to be a great team. I think they're going to be a good team. But I know that what Trey wants to build and what Trey believes, being 8-4, he would not be happy with seeing this right now. But that's what I believe, and that's where I'm landing at. I don't know, your thoughts.
Yeah, man. I saw some of the chat say they're going to lose to Elizabeth State. I don't know. Is Elizabeth City State supposed to be good? There's no way. No way. Yeah, shout out to Scotty. He said don't.
Yeah, I hear him. I hear him.
I think personally, I think I think 7-5, 8-4 is probably where I'd have it. This is a really tough schedule. And listen, maybe they beat Gardner Webb and they lose an extra conference game. I think it could be something like that potentially. You talk about how difficult the conference play is going to be. I'm fine if you flip it either way, but just I think 8-4, 7-5, first year quarterback would be a respectable season. I think for Central, listen, Trey Oliver has earned the right to have championship expectations every year. Like, let's
Yes,
just
sir.
for what he's done in this conference at this program. When I look at the roster, everything, and look at the schedule with all these tough tests, I think this is a year where you're like they're just a step behind South Carolina State, and you get ready for a run next year if you can retain some of this young talent that's going to have to play this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's North Carolina Central, and now we switch over to the South Carolina State Bulldogs. All right. Last year, they won the Celebration Bowl, won their second consecutive MEAC title with a 5-0 record. And with greatness comes change. So, Jonathan Williams is now in the NFL. KJ Black is a really good replacement at offensive coordinator. Jason Onyebuagu is now the offensive line coach, and he's also co-offensive coordinator. More of the run coordinator. Alvin Fosselman, SWAC fans, you know that man very, very well. He's a co-defensive coordinator and special teams, and Kevin King is going to work with him on the defense. Shout out to my guy Jordan, man, at defensive coordinator for the last few years, man. He was really good for that staff. So Chennis Berry entering his third season, yet to lose a conference game as head coach of South Carolina State, and he didn't do it when he was at Benedict. All right, so last year, they repeated as MEAC champions, rallied from a 21-0 deficit at the Celebration Bowl. They were slinging the ball everywhere last year, 7th in passing yards. They seek to become the first team to win 3 straight MEAC titles since Hampton back in the 2000s. All right. Here's the departures, man, and they lost a lot of guys, but they got a lot of guys coming back. Jared Washington, he's with the Minnesota Vikings. 2 of those quarterbacks, Roger Big Baby Smith. He was the lone returning starter on last year's team. Jordan Smith, man, lit it up in the Celebration Bowl. Jalen Johnson and their leading sack man, Michael Lunds. But look at what they got coming back, man. Jordan Franklin, stud. Shamari Reed and Quantre Harry. Quantre Harry is so underrated as a DB. Jordan Dollard, Kayvon Chisholm, Josh Barker. Return almost the entire defensive line. And then, you lose Roger Smith, but you get back James Reddick, Keontae Marsh, and Moses. Then you get all 3 of your best running backs last year. Shaw, Smith, and Adams. Sounds like a law firm. And you got 52 new players to boot, okay? Now, you talk about some of these new players. Trey Robinson from UNC Pembroke. If you have not seen this guy's tape, shout out to my boy Kobe Orr. He did a show last night on his channel where he went over Trey Robinson's tape and talked about how this guy was in the Conference of Carolinas. Okay. Zay Wells is another guy, as if they needed any more talent in the backfield, in the defense. He's another guy from Western Carolina. And it goes on and on, man. I'm so high on this team, as you can probably imagine. It would be hard to believe that a team can get better after winning a title like that in today's era. But what they have defensively is scary. Where you have certain question marks, though, may be at wide receiver. Nigel Johnson, he was coming back, but he transferred. But you've also got guys like Nick Soul. You got some receivers to work with. So I don't know, man. I'm really high on this team, as you might imagine. I think you feel the same.
Yeah, this team is ridiculous. Last year was the year that they weren't supposed to win. They had question marks in multiple spots going into last year. Central checked more boxes, and all these other teams were getting the hype, and South Carolina State just got kind of overlooked by everybody, including myself, because I just thought it was going to be a year where Chennis needed to reload. man, they have the unquestioned best defensive line in HBCU football going into the year.
That's right.
There's not even there's not even a close second or an argument for second. It's them, and it's just them. Like no one else even has a claim to be in the conversation. You have two of probably the top 10 best defensive tackles coming back in the FCS, and Joshua Barker and Kavon Chisholm. And then Jordan Dollard was kind of a breakout player there at edge for them. And then on top of that, too, you bring in a guy who is a proven offensive coordinator in KJ Black. And no disrespect to the last guy, but KJ Black was one of the best play callers in HBCU football, and he's going to be a problem in this offense. And Trey Robinson fits that scheme perfectly. And shout out to Kobe for finally doing a video, because I've been talking about this kid since he committed, and everyone just kind of kept sleeping on him, like, who's going to be the quarterback at South Carolina State? I'm like, this kid, it can play. And last year led his team in rushing and finished the year with like 2,500 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, had like 600 rushing and 9 rushing touchdowns. I think he finished with a rushing touchdown in like 5 consecutive games.
Yeah.
And
yeah, man.
I mean, the kid's just really good. And then on top of that, too, they go and add Caleb Williams from Furman, who missed last year due to injury, but was the starting safety at Furman 2 years ago and was a SoCon all-freshman selection.
Man.
Abundance of riches, man. Like this team, like, and we'll get to the schedule in a second. The way the schedule sets up, it feels like anything less than 10 wins.
Let's go there, man.
Disappointment.
Yeah, I got them at 11-1, man. I got the Furman game as the 1. That's what I got.
That's gonna be such a good game. Like listen, if you're a South Carolina State fan or you're just a football fan, please make the trip to Furman. That is going to be one of the games of the week, because I would imagine, like, I'm very high on Furman. I got them finished as second in the SoCon. That could be a top 25 matchup if Furman handles business early in the year. Because South Carolina State's already preseason top 25. That I'm a voter and I had them in my top 25. And I think they're going to be really good. You look at that schedule, like, where's the slip up? Because, like, here's what gets me is that all their crucial games outside of really Furman are at home. You get Central at home. You get Delaware State at home. I mean, even like Florida A&M is kind of on the road, right? Like it's in Miami, but listen, with what FAM has to deal with, playing like 2 games in like 4.5 days, it feels like it's going to be a ridiculous trip for them. I think this team, if you finish anything less than 10-2, is kind of like head scratcher, to be honest with you, with no FBS game.
Exactly. So yeah, man, I got them repeating, doing a 3-peat. That's what I got. So yeah, she said that's in Spartanburg. Bulldogs will be there in full force.
I don't know, because I know a lot of other FCS voters, like, kind of overlook HBC football sometimes. If they find a way, or Berry finds a way to go undefeated in conference play again, 3 consecutive years, man, it's going to be really hard for me not to put on the campaign that he should win the Eddie Robinson Award. And I know it's supposed to, like, the Eddie Robinson Award is supposed to be just for a single season. Man, like, he just deserves it for what he's done over these past 3 years, man. Because, like, I know everyone just acts like he got handed, like, a silver spoon from Buddy Pugh. But does everyone remember how bad that South Carolina State team was the year before Chinnis got here? Like, Buddy Pugh was getting beat down his last year. Like, Jackson embarrassed them on national TV in that SWAC MEAC challenge, and it just got worse from there. Like, this wasn't a team that was coming off a conference title. They won, what, like 3-4 games that year? They weren't very good. And what does he do? 2 consecutive years, 10-0 in conference play, 2 Celebration Bowl appearances, and a win with a 21-point comeback. Come on, man.
Exactly. So yeah, man, that is the MEAC, and here it is, predicted standing. So I've got South Carolina State at a perfect 5-0, and then you can see as it progresses. So yeah, that's what we got for the MEAC here in 2026. So now, everybody, make sure you like the stream as we proceed now to the SWAC. Last time conference winning. So we updated this ledger from last year. Prairie View now moved from 2009 to 2025. So as you can see, you've got some teams here on this list that expect to be in the money this year that have been waiting a while. Alabama State, Grambling. You've got Jackson State looking to get back to the top of the heap, right? Alcorn, 2019. So, man, we getting ready to get into this thing, man. Let's start here as we show you. These are in the Celebration Bowl era, last 10 years. Funny thing here, you look at where it was with Grambling when this whole thing started in the Celebration Bowl era, when Alcorn was in the East. But now you look starting 2021 in the fall. Look in the West. Prairie View and Southern have alternated the last 5 years. Just something, I'm not trying to say anything. I know Southern fans are like, wow, really? And listen, we just pointing out the facts. Jackson State there, you see, they're on a nice little heater. Other than the Florida A&M year, that's that's where you're at. So, yeah. So let's progress. Top returning performers on offense. Jalen Jennings almost hit the 1,000 yards last year. 936 rushing. Nate Rembert is your leading returning receiver, right? You see some guys that were playing for other teams like Frank Pierre. Now he's playing for Alabama State, and Davion Walker was playing for Alabama A&M. Now he's on Texas Southern. So you go on and you see, look at Andrew Body was their fifth leading returning rusher. So let's go on here. Top performers on defense, interceptions. Tayshawn Sims, man, 5 interceptions last year. Jamari Stokes, 5 interceptions. Malik Guthaki was your leading tackle for loss guy. A lot of the other categories were dominated by guys who are not on rosters anymore. And here's, as I did with the MEAC, here's my interesting stat for the SWAC from last year. 8 of the 12 teams finished in the top 40 of the FCS in fewest sacks allowed. 8 of the 12 finished in the top 40 in the country in fewest sacks allowed. PV was 3rd. Alabama State was 6th. And you see Jackson State 10th. Alcorn 22nd. Southern, crazy. They were T25 in fewest sacks allowed. And you see as it progresses. All right, so let's get started. I will start this year with the West. So we'll go East. We'll go West, then East. All right, so we flipped it last year. So I start with UAPB Golden Lions. All right, shout out to my guy, Coach Hampton, man. Love Coach Hampton. Guy believes, fights hard, man. One of the hardest working men in show business. They were 4-8 last year, 2-6. Staff changes. Obviously, everybody knows by now, that Tony Hull is no longer their offensive coordinator. So you've got Stephen Barnett who comes in. Dimitri Hill, he comes in as well as a new offensive line coach because the previous offensive line coach is now at North Carolina A&T. Then you got a new special team coordinator in Keith Scott, also with DBs. All right, last year, they beat Southern. Biggest win they had over Southern in years. They beat Alcorn State in the Southern Heritage Classic. And then some of the games that Coach Hamp kicked himself for, he really harped on. They didn't finish in close losses to Grambling and FAMU. The crazy stats, though, they were tied as the least penalized team in the SWAC. They only had 72 penalties the entire season, which is crazy for how they only won 4 games. But this is what made the difference. Defense. They were 118th in total defense. Again, there's only 126 teams. They were 120th in rush defense, right? But I know Tony Hull is a really, really good offensive mind, but this one really shocked me when I saw this one, Blue. They finished 101st in scoring offense. They only averaged 19 points a game in the grand scheme of it, okay? Now, key departures. Christian Peters leaving out as a grad transfer. He was a grad transfer coming in. He leaves out. That now they're going to be on their 4th starting quarterback in the last 4 seasons. Okay. You see the key returners. Jalen Jennings, he's going to have a bigger role this year than he did last year. It's hard to even think that he can get a much bigger role, but he's going to need to. Denarius Hilliard, man, underrated stud. All right. I interviewed him at SWAC Media Day. He gets lost in the shuffle by how good of a player this guy is. He's a tackling machine. He gets after guys, man. He plays with an undying motor. Okay. And then you see some of the rest of the guys. All right. Let's talk about UAPB, man.
I mean, like, what's the, like, what, like, for me, is like, what's the ceiling for them? Really and truly, like, what do we think the realistic ceiling is for them? Because I mean, like D-Lob said in the chat, man, like they haven't posted like anything about this team. Like, we know the guys that were at SWAC Media Day, and that's about it. That's really all we got. And so, like, they have question marks at quarterback. They have question marks across the offensive and defensive line. And I think that's something that Alonzo Hampton has talked about over the past 2 years at SWAC Media Day, is that we got to keep getting bigger on the offensive and defensive lines, because that's the battles that they lose when they play these elite teams in conference. And the only reason I'm kind of worried about it, like, yeah, did they take a step forward? Did they beat a generationally bad Southern team last year? Yeah, they did. But and they got Alcorn early, but I think we all know, like, Alcorn really peaked late. But you look at some of the other losses: 51-7 against Texas Southern, 14-31 against Bethune-Cookman. They get 56-9 against PV, 44-13 against Bama State. Like, yeah, they went 2-6 in conference. That should be commended, but they were a long way from being competitive with most of the other conference members. And so I think this is, unless they find a quarterback that can stabilize it and really improve this offense, I just wonder if this defense is going to be good enough to hold up, man. Because you look at some of the key guys that they lost them to other FCS SWAC schools.
Yep.
And that's just always a hard place to be, man. So I just don't know what the ceiling is for UAPB next year.
Yeah, and that's where I got him, man. I love it. I love Coach Hampton. I do. I say it all the time. But man, I could not find, maybe Bethune-Cookman, but other than that, man, I could not see any more than 2-10. Them getting those 2 D2 wins on their ledger. You know, and that's at the worst case, because those 2 should be givens that you should win those. I had them at their best case at 5-7. Because for some of the reasons of last year, they snuck up and got a couple. You know, maybe you get a team, you know, like Southern, who wasn't as good as everybody thought they should have been last year. But other than that, I mean, I don't see more than 2-10 for them. I think you agree.
I think I would go 3-9. Because, and like D-Lob said, I think someone in the SWAC is going to be really bad. It always happens that one team gets hyped up and they're going to slip up and they're going to win, you know, whether it's Texas Southern, whether it's Bethune, they're going to win one of those games at home. And they're going to pull off an upset somewhere. They always seem to pull off an upset somewhere with him. But I think 3-9 is where I would have it. 3-9, 1-7 in the SWAC.
Okay. And you know what? I had this for the longest time. I did have them 3-9, 1-7. I had their one win was against Bethune-Cookman, but we'll get to Bethune-Cookman later. So yeah, shout out to Coach Hampton, man, and these guys, man. But yeah, I hope you guys prove me wrong. All right, now we go to Southern. All right, first year head coach Marshall Falk. Last year they were 2-10, 1-7. You got a new roster, you got a new coaching staff, and they're looking to regain those winning ways. They finished their season in a really good way, though, crazily, with that comeback win over Grambling in the Bayou Classic. I'm still scratching my head on how the hell that happened.
Well, you want to know what happened? Like, Grambling sold their soul to beat Jackson, and so the punishment to keep beating Jackson is they have to lose to Bayou Classic. That was the trade-off there.
And you look at it, man, I mean, 98th in total defense last year, 104th in scoring offense. And then, you know, they struggled to throw the ball last year, which was crazy when you have guys like Darren Morris on the roster who's at Boise State. But you look at some of the key departures, Kelby Givens, even in a bad season, he had a really good year according to his standards. Traylon James is now at LSU. You look at some of these guys, man, but now you look at the returners. Trey Holly coming back. That's something that you can hang your hat for. Mike Franklin joining them. That gives you something. You've got Landon Carter, Ashton Strother, and then Herman Brister III coming back. But here's some of the newcomers. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Christian Johnson at quarterback. And for good reason, man. For good reason. And you look at the Wiggins brothers coming from UMass, and you see some of these guys. Zuri Madison is another guy I've heard some big things about from Arkansas State. But yeah, man, talk about Southern.
Again, like I think they did a solid, like quiet job bringing in some guys that we didn't know about, like Tim Artis coming in from Howard was a late addition. Even like a Christian Johnson, I don't think was there like initially in the class because there was a lot of talk about Wyatt McCauley kind of being the JUCO guy to take that spot. But Christian Johnson, it feels like is trending to be the starter there. I think they really and truly had to upgrade so much on the offensive line and the interior defensive line. And yeah, you got to go replace Kelby Givens, which is never an easy task. But I think you saw last year, and it was really evident in that Central game. If you remember the MEAC SWAC Challenge, where I mean, Central was just dominating the line of scrimmage. I mean, their D tackles were like getting pushed back into linebackers, and they had to bring safeties down in the box, and the safeties are getting killed up. I mean, it just all broke down for them. And you see this with teams sometimes, man, where they just once it gets rolling downhill, it's really hard to stop. And momentum's a real thing in sports. And I think everything kind of compounded where you get blown out week one, then your starting quarterback gets, injured against Valley, and everything just seemed to kind of get moving in the wrong direction. I think the biggest question is how equipped is Christian Johnson going to be to run this offense? You have this really unique, exciting offense that everyone knows about. Everyone's excited to see how it looks in the SWAC. But man, if you don't like, the biggest thing is to have the point guard of that offense. And does he make good decisions with the football? Is he on time? Is he accurate? Like that's all going to be the big question marks here for Southern is how accurate and efficient and effective can Christian Johnson be in this offense? Because we've seen what this offense looks like when your quarterback's off. You can't afford to have an off game. And I think they added some promising young freshmen, man. I think when the freshman All-American teams come out next year, I wouldn't be surprised to see Southern have a handful on there because they're going to play a lot of young players. And I think the biggest question for me too is like, who's going to replace Kelby Givens as the pass rusher? Like that's
right.
I mean, how many snaps and sacks and everything do you have to replace off that defensive line? And so that's going to be the thing. I do like some of the additions they had at linebacker. I mean, wide receiver, man. Like they brought in some dudes in that room. I will say, like, pay attention to Charles Robertson coming in. Like I think he's going to be really, really good. Aiden Valdez at tight end coming in. And they got some young wide receivers that I think are going to see a lot of playing time. The question is going to be, is Falk more of the Deshaun Jackson type celebrity hire, or is he
Michael Vick
or Michael Vick where the growing pains? And I will say this, I'm going to probably shock a lot of people that I'm defending him for this. He got a lot of publicity for his comments about him being, what was it, like nervous or like overwhelmed? Like I forget the exact verbiage.
Not comfortable.
Not comfortable. I think a lot of people, like as media, we have to be careful with this because on one hand, we say we hate coach speak and we hate when coaches don't show emotion and aren't honest with the media and just give us the same BS answers that we hear on every platform. When a coach finally opens up and like is honest about his feelings and whatever that may be, like, man, I think we have to evaluate that a little bit. Like, I don't think it was him. Like, yeah, maybe it turns out a bad season, right? Maybe it does lead to a bad year, but I think he was just being honest, man. Like this, like at the end of the day, I think almost every first-time head coach feels like this.
Yes.
Where it's a lot, man. And think about the time of college football that we're in. Man, wait, can you imagine being a first-time coach and you still got lawsuits where you don't know if players who left your team last year might not be eligible, like could be potentially eligible to come back late. And I just think I think people were a little bit hard on him for those comments because this is what we ask of coaches as media and fans. Fans want to see their coaches be honest, and then as soon as a coach is honest, what what happens, Wayne? Everyone's like, "Oh my god, why would you
Yeah,
say that?" Like, don't say that
exactly.
to the media, and then they try to like media train them back up, and it's like, okay, well, you can't ask for one thing and then get mad when that's given to you.
Exactly, man. So, man, I really had a tough time with my evaluation for it.
It's hard. A
Um,
lot of new pieces. A lot of new
so
pieces.
hard, so hard. And I know Southern fans, I know you might want to come after Wild Wayne, but this is where I'm at, man. I landed here. I went 4-8. you know, this thing could be, I know I put their best case at 5-7. Man, this thing could be this could be anything. This was honestly out of all the teams, and then
Mm.
also the next one we're going to talk about, these next two teams, these were the hardest evaluations that I had when it came down to doing my win-loss. Uh and a lot of this is dictated upon, like, look where they're playing some of these games, man. Now, the Alcorn State game and also the Bayou Classic, those are ones that I'm not fully married to. So charge it to my head and not my heart. Um, Texas Southern is a swing. But at the end of the day, it's like, are they better than Jackson State? Are they better than PV? Are they, I mean, we'll get to FAMU later. Are they better than Alcorn? Those are the questions you really have to ask yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I just kind of said, okay, I land the plane on 4-8 with the thoughts that this team can be better if they put it together. But I think it's going to be a lot of growing pains. So I don't know. What do you think?
I, I don't disagree. I do think you're being a little hard with their ceiling.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's why I
d-
said,
d-
the
yeah,
ceiling, I think, needs to be, I agree with that.
yeah. Like I even think the 4-8 might be a little tough because I mean Texas Southern, lots of question marks, and you have a quarterback that really struggled last year. That's the lock and starter for them. Um, and so I think that's a gettable game. We don't know what FAMU's got a ton of new pieces. Like, would it stun you if they pulled off that upset? I don't think it would
Nope.
floor you. I
Nope.
would lean FAMU in that one, especially on the road. Alcorn has been inconsistent the past 2 years. Would it stun you if they were competitive in that one and had a chance? I don't think so. I think the only 3 games that they really don't have a chance to be competitive in is Bama. 4 if you include Houston. Let's just say 3 SWAC opponents.
Right.
Bama State, Jackson, and PV are significantly more talented than Southern, and they should just win, barring an unexpected upset, just based on pure talent. But I think Grambling's more talented. But Wayne, can we say they don't have a chance in the Bayou Classic? I mean, hell, like
No,
they
you
had
can't say
they had
that.
the worst Southern team in the history of the program just beat a 7-win Grambling team
Yep.
like less than 12 months ago. And so
Yep.
I think they're going to I actually think they're going to be much improved. Now, there's still going to be growing pains. And I think we see that week 1 against Bama State. I think I would still lean, like, if you're asking for my like realistic record prediction, I think I would bump it up a win. I think 5-7, 3-5 in the SWAC. And I
Mhm.
really do think they're going to have a shot at 6 wins. And I think that's an improvement. Now, I know the narrative, like Southern fans are not happy unless they're competing for SWAC championships. But you were a 2-win team last year, historically bad team. If you get to 5-6 wins in year 1, and the only games you weren't competitive in are Bama State, Jackson, and PV, I think that's an A. I think that's a B plus A minus year for Marshall Falk year 1.
Yeah. Now, like I said, they can be a lot better than this, but they got to put it together. All right. Everybody
Mm.
like the stream as we go to Texas Southern. All right. Now, they were 6-5 last year, 5-3 in the SWAC. Chris Dishman coming into his 3rd season. You see that they had their first winning season in 2 decades. You saw, they had some all SWAC guys. Again, they were tied with UAPB as the least penalized team in the SWAC, 72 penalties in 11 games. All right. They were 58th in scoring offense. They're about middle of the road on scoring offense. Okay. and this is something that really kept them from taking that next step last year, in my opinion. They could not throw that ball consistently. 1/10 in the FCS. Okay. Key departures. You see Bogarty and Akins. Those were two really good defenders. Both of them transferred out. KJ Cooper transferred out, last year's quarterback. Now you get one of the better running backs, and in Athian Renfro. And the thing I like about Athian Renfro is he's durable. You can count on him to be out there every single day, right? So he had 835 rush yards and 7 TDs. Rorion Richardson, he was he was hit or miss for them last year, but if there was a good receiver that they had, he was a pretty good receiver for them in spots. Jaden Daniels was one of their key offensive linemen coming back, and then Quentin Murray had some pretty good production. Now you look at the next slide here, newcomers. MJ Henson comes back to the program. He transferred. He was first team all SWAC 2 years ago. He comes back from FAU. Then you get some Alabama A&M guys, Ramir Lewis and Davion Walker, who had really good production. And then the aforementioned Cam McCoy, who's now in at quarterback from Southern. And then you get Trayvon Howard from Arkansas State, and then Damian Williams from Coastal Carolina. These are some of your top newcomers. All right, so what you got on Texas Southern? Because this will be interesting, because I think we're going to agree here on where I went with this.
This is either going to be the team that everyone laughs at me at the end of the year on, or I'll look like a genius. I think this team takes a massive step backwards. I think there's a chance they finish 5th in the division. I mean, maybe right there above UAPB. Listen, man, like, how many times do we have to see the McCoy experience to just understand that, like, that's not the answer at quarterback? I just don't know, like, how many times we got to see. I mean, even TC Taylor fell for it. He benched Jacoby and Morgan for him and lost the Grambling game because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And literally cost Jackson a game because he wanted to keep playing him. Last year, completed 42% of his passes last year at Southern. I just don't think it's going to be very good, man, because I actually think the quarterback they had last year was actually better than people thought.
Yes.
And he battled some injuries, and I think he really unlocked the offense for them. I like the run game. I think they're going to be able to run the football. MJ Henson's a stud. I think he's almost like a lock for first team all SWAC. But I just, if that's your answer at quarterback, listen, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, man. This is where I landed. I went 4-7 with them, and even with this, this can be, I have them at the best case. This is where I say, like what you said. You said it could either be, the worst take, or it could be the best take. Like, best case, hey, Cam McCoy is serviceable. They put it together on offense. They get going and they go 7-4. That's what I think. It could possibly be 7-4. If you throw in maybe Alabama A&M, Alcorn, and maybe the opener, right? But I've got them at 4-7, 4-4. I look at the Grambling game. I was kind of, but Grambling, and then also the Southern game, I was kind of back and forth. So I really could have lowered their ceiling, or lowered their worst case down to 2-9, but I didn't want to, because I'm not gonna ding them completely on everything with the quarterback because of some of the pieces that they have around it. But this could get bad, man. If Cam McCoy is not the quarter, and they struggle at quarterback, this could get bad.
I think the floor is 2-10, 1,000, or two. I guess it'd be
2-9. Yeah, they're playing 11 games.
Yeah, 2-9 is absolutely the floor. Absolutely the floor, because I think Grambling's a loss already. I think I would have them at 3-8 right now.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if Southern's they might lose a Southern game and have to pick a win up somewhere else. I just I think it's that type of year, man. I think it's going to be a really, really long year, man. And they got some tough games. I mean, to get Alcorn on the road at PV or at PV, Central at home, even getting them at home, that's not an easy opening game. I mean, you realistically, man, like you got Florida Atlantic and UTEP. Man, if they're 0-5 going into Valley, where's the morale of the team? And 0-5 is not me giving you an outlandish take. I think 0-5, a lot of people in the chat would have that right now if you asked.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yep.
like Steve said, where is home? You don't even have a home state. Like you're not even really playing at home.
Right.
You're just playing somewhere in Houston. And so I think this could get uglier. I even think you possibly this might be being a little bit disrespectful. Is like I think 1-11 might actually be the floor.
Yeah, I got you, man. And it's like after I was thinking about this, I was like, yeah. But 0-5 is definitely a realistic possibility. But hey, maybe Chris Dishman pulls a rabbit out of the hat again. He's done it 2 years, but man, we'll see.
Watch it. Now they're going to turn around. They're going to win 9 games, win the SWAC West, and we're going to have to delete this episode from YouTube.
Right. All right, so let's move on. Everybody like the stream, guys. All right, so now I'm going to Alcorn. All right, third season at the helm, and actually, this is actually 11-13. I didn't get to change that. It's 11-13. They were 5-7 last year. He was 6-6 in his first year. So everybody, it's 11-13 is Cedric Thomas's record. One staff change, Kadron Davis, new special teams coordinator, outside linebacker coach. This team, they won 5 of their last 7 after an 0-5 start. The wheels really fell hard when they lost that first game to Northwestern State in a game that they, let's just say it for what it was. They beat themselves. The Prairie View game, that was another one that they were kicking themselves over. Had a chance and probably should have won that game. They got their running game together towards the back half, 255 yards rushing the game. Second in total offense in the SWAC, second in total defense in the SWAC. And they were 28th in the country in rush defense, right? So key departures. Stamarion Edwards, and, they lost both of their running backs from last year. Reggie Davis was playing some really good football down the stretch. Jacorian Sewell is gone as well. Tyron Warren transferred over there to North Carolina State. Now, you look at some of these returners, man. Now, these guys, they return a lot of guys. Jalen Tolbert is back at quarterback, right? Eric Thomas at D-line. Kenny Andrews and Gideon Spotsville. These guys all played a lot last year. You got a second team All-SWAC and Cam Rogers, and you return 3 other guys on that offensive line. The only guy that they didn't return is a center, right? And then you're expecting Amarion Blakes to take a step forward, McKelton in the back half, and then you've also got Carl McDonald, who comes back as probably one of the guys who has more experience than anybody else that's on the roster at running back, okay? And then you look at some of these newcomers, right? Armin Wright, some things were said about him, his potential coming from William and Mary as a receiver. Kareem Burke, we saw what he did with UAPB. You got some more of these guys here, man. There's a lot of question marks, though, about their running back room. And that is something that Ced Thomas was very candid about. He said, we just don't know what we got there until we get through training camp. Otherwise, they've got experience everywhere else. Your thoughts on Alcorn?
Yeah, this is a team that I think I'm a little bit higher on than a lot of people. I think, you look back at last year, they started out so poorly. But as soon as they changed the offensive coordinator, man, this looked like a brand new team. I think Tolbert looked like a brand new quarterback, and they started moving the football on people, man. Like it really turned after that FAMU loss, where they lost that super close game, and then they go and beat Valley. They blow out Texas Southern. They beat Southern. They go and beat Grambling pretty handily. And then if you remember, they had multiple chances to win that Jackson game on the road, with Jackson being motivated to win. Because if Jackson loses that game, Bama State, would have went to the SWAC championship. So
Yep.
you beat you had a chance to beat a motivated Jackson team on the road, and you look at all their losses, man. 10 points to Northwestern State, 10 points to A&M, 4 points to UAPB, 1 point to PV, what,
Mm-hmm.
5 points to Florida A&M, and then you
Yep.
lose by 6 to Jackson at the end of the year. All these games were super close, and they were super competitive in them,
Yep.
even when they weren't playing well. And so I think that's the big thing is they have a lot of continuity. I think the offensive line is really, really good. And I think that's going to take a step forward. And that always helps, man. And I always said this because I said this with Jackson. What was it last year? I believe going into last year, I was like, it doesn't matter that they lost Irv. Running back is the easiest position in college football to replace. Just get you an athlete, and as long as you have an offensive line, you can make that work. And I think for Alcorn, they've had a history of finding guys to be really good at running back. I'm not super concerned about that. My bigger question is this defense has been really good when they have a guy who can go get the quarterback. When you look at the Malachis, right? You think a few years ago when Malachi coming off the edge was unblockable at times, and it just took their defense to the next level. They haven't really had that guy. They didn't have that guy last year. So who steps up and is going to be the go-to pass rusher for them? Because that's what makes a Ced Thomas defense elite. And I think last year that's what they were missing, even though they did play better down the stretch.
Yep. So here's where I went here. And I really believe this team has a lot of potential. You see where I have their best case. I have them at 9-3 for their best case.
Oh Lord.
Right? But where I landed was at 7-5. And a lot of this is contingent because you look at the schedule, man. They got to go to Grambling, they got to go to Southern, and they got to go to PV. You know, I don't know what they got to do to get this somehow, changed, because I don't think you should have to go to all three of those. Maybe you should get 2 of them on the road, but you got to go to all 3. And I gave them the Texas Southern one. And also I was looking at that North Alabama game. I know North Alabama wasn't as good last year, but I think that they're going to be a little bit better this year with a returning quarterback and also a little bit of motivation, because that's going to be their opening game in their new stadium there at North Alabama. But I look down this list, though. I think Alcorn is going to be right there and going to have something to say about them. Shout out to G. Well, I don't know. What do you think about this?
Like North Alabama's okay. This is where I get it. It's hard because like you don't want to pick with your heart, because like I'll be rooting for Alcorn in that game. But listen, man, it's so hard to pick the SWAC in some of these out of conference games. I'm just going to be 100% with everybody watching. It's to the point where like if you pick the SWAC to win an out of conference game against a non-MEAC opponent, you're almost just like betting to lose money over the past few years. I mean, this is the team that just lost to Northwestern State. I mean, like I put that in perspective. The worst team in FCS football beat Alcorn last year. Stormed the field on them. We never see that in FCS football. And so I do think even if you flip North Alabama, I do think there's a chance, they could slip up somewhere else, maybe like a FAMU or someone like that. So I'm actually with you. I think 7-5 is probably where I would have it. And for people saying North Alabama was terrible, North Alabama took Illinois State to overtime last year and should have beat Illinois State, the team that just made the run to the FCS National Championship. Right. The UAC is not a joke. Like,
no, it's not, man.
They got to play the Tarletons, the Austin Peas, the Abilene Christians. Like, that conference was rough last year. So I get it. I get what the record says, but I don't think North Alabama is just a game you write in pen and say they're going to win. They should be competitive and possibly win. But at the end of the day, I got to see some SWAC teams beat some just mediocre out of conference FCS opponents before I can bet on that.
Absolutely. But for Alcorn, their story is going to greatly be told by those 3 road games that I talked about. You go to Grambling, Prairie View, and you go to Southern.
If they lose all 3, you're probably looking at 6-6. I just unless you just steal one somewhere, But I mean, man, you can't lose. You can't go 0-3 on the road in those crucial games, especially if you lose to North Alabama too. 0-4 on the road in your 4 biggest road games would be a disaster.
Absolutely. So yeah, but if they can put it together, those guys they can be right there in the mix in the West. All right, now we go to Grambling, and it's so funny. I wanted to put this up here. He said, "Why is everybody high on Grambling? Is this the same?" Listen, man, can't go off of what it was last year. This is a new year, new season. I know it's the same coach, but it's a new season. All right, here we go. Third season for Mickey Joseph. They were 7-5 last year. Didn't end well, as we said. Brandon Varner comes in as a defensive ends coach. Jimmy Zachary Jr. is now DT and also defensive run coordinator. Also, Chiron Carey was the OC. He left out. They have not announced a replacement. I was thinking probably Losi maybe get in the mix with it, and maybe also Mickey even himself will be with it. So we'll see. You know, Eric Losi, he's called plays before, so we'll see. So now, last year they led the SWAC in sacks, but 33. They were a T14 in all the nation. Defensively, they were really good, man. Fourth in the SWAC. They were fourth overall in the SWAC, but they had T27 in America in total defense. But where things kind of went haywire for them, you know, on offense, 72nd in total offense. But you look at that, finished with a winning record despite having 4 quarterbacks that they played with. 4. They ended the year with Hayden Benoit. And then I put in there, sorry, Jackson State fans. I just, you know, it was a highlight for them. That's just what they love to say. All right, so we go on. Here are the key departures. Keith Jones, who's now at Penn State. Bryce Cage, man. I love watching Bryce Cage, man. That guy was awesome. Markel Linzer, he was a ball hawk. Warren Robinson, he was equally another stud over there. Those are the guys where they were getting after quarterback. Now, here's some of the key returners. You know, you get Marcellus Johnson back, Tyson George, Eaton and Cruz. You know, you got some guys that can provide some depth. 62% of this roster returns from last year. All right. That is that's something that they can build with. I only say that because it's something to build with. Now, here is the list right here that's going to tell the story for me. And there's more guys that are on this newcomers list, but you know, we just couldn't fit all of them in there. But these are the quality guys that they're mentioning, the household names. Jacoby Robinson from Southern Miss, previously from Boston College. He's the guy who they came out of spring ball with, is named as the starting quarterback. Obviously, you got RJ Johnson who's there. You've got returners like Ashton Fry. You know, so that quarterback room is loaded. Jamarion Parker, a running back from Nebraska. You know, he's going to add some depth there at the running back position. Ford. Corey Amos is a guy who you've heard a lot from Ole Miss. So, you know, you've got some guys, man. Needless to say, before I turn it over to you, Blue, you know, this is a year where Mickey Joseph has really laid it all on the line. They went for it. And if it doesn't happen this year, I mean, hey, who knows if it'll happen for him. So I'll turn it over to you, man. Your thoughts on Grambling?
It's going to come down to that quarterback play, man. Like, are they gonna stick with Jacoby, or is RJ going to be the guy? And if RJ is the guy, man, he's got to let the ball go, man. There was too many times where he was too conservative. People look at the touchdown to interception ratio. A lot of that is because, like, this is again like us talking about looking at surface level stats. Watch the game. Like, it's great that he had such a good touchdown to interception ratios because he held the ball too long. He took a ton of sacks and he checked it down a lot. Yards per attempt were down. He's got to evolve, and maybe Mickey and Bruce Eugene can work on that a little bit. I think Jacoby Robinson offers more of like maybe a little bit of a dual threat type, I guess, aspect to this offense. But I'll say this: I'm actually really excited to see Parker and Ford. Like Parker, I remember him coming out of high school was an absolute monster coming out of Missouri, man. Like I think he rushed for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. Was a really, really highly touted 4-star recruit. And I always get interested. We talk about these teams across and not just HBCU, but across the FCS. we've seen a lot of mixed results with teams adding former, I guess, highly touted high school prospects that just didn't work out at the previous institution, right? That are still young. They're redshirt freshmen, they're sophomores, maybe even going into their junior year, right? And they just didn't get the action. It's like the variance on the results of doing that is so great, man. You see the teams that make it work, right, and make a big run because those guys all turn out, and then you see the teams like Incarnate Word and like other teams like that just don't live up to the hype because those guys don't gel. I also think, man, like Davion Mitchell coming in at tight end is going to be an issue. I mean, former 4-star guy coming in from Louisville, like 6'4", like 270, can run. And I think they're going to have a lot of talent to spread around. It's just going to come down to, can Bruce Eugene get the best out of that quarterback room? Because the variance in RJ Johnson's game is massive. Just ask FAMU fans.
Yes, yes. So here's where I landed. I'm going 8-3, and really, I could switch the Texas Southern and the Jackson State game. That's really where I'm at with this. That worst case, listen, it's just because you don't know, because you feel things, but don't worry about that worst case. I feel like 8-3 is where these guys really should be. And yeah, that's just where I'm at, man. 6-2 in the SWAC. And if it doesn't happen, Mickey Joseph, that's what I got on this one, Blue.
I don't know if I'm that high on them. I think they'll be talented. I think it's probably closer to 7-5, maybe 6-6.
Okay.
This year, I just think the uncertainty at quarterback kind of gives me pause there. I think Jackson breaks the streak this year and beats them. Like, it just, Wayne, like, how many times can the team that's more talented lose to a team like that? Like, it just feels like the odds are in their favor. But I do think if you flip that, I've already kind of talked about how I feel about Texas Southern. I think that's a win. Yep. I think the biggest thing for Mickey, I think 7-5 is fine as long as they beat Southern, man. Like, if you lose a third consecutive Bayou Classic, there's going to be some tough conversations around the hole.
Sure is.
Your school has a rivalry that's very similar. You can't go and lose 3 classic games like that in a row, especially one of which was to the worst team in school history. Can't happen. It just, like, imagine if A&M had a coach who consistently won 6-7 games a year, but y'all lost to Alabama State in the Magic City Classic. That was 2-10.
Yep. That's it. So that's where we're at, man. That's where I'm at. That's where I landed with Grambling. So now,
and David, I know it'd be 5 in a row. I was talking for Mickey in particular, would be 3 in a row for Mickey. That extends to the last coach.
Right. So now we go to PV. Everybody like the stream. Everybody. All right, Prairie View, they were they won the SWAC last year. I had to catch myself. They're not defending. They're looking to get another one. Right? They're SWAC champions from last year, 10-4. Tremaine Jackson entering his second season. Staff changes. Manny Martinez. He was really excited about this to get Manny Martinez back. Worked with him a long time. Now he's his offensive line coach. Daryl Colbert moves over to being wide receiver coach, and he's assistant head coach. So now we go, first SWAC title since 2009. The stats were really what it was, man. They were third in the FCS in fewest sacks allowed. That really helped out. Third in the FCS in total defense. You win a lot of games when you only give up 17 points a game. And they were right there in the top third in total offense, 31.6. But obviously the one is a sour taste in their mouth was losing in 4 overtimes in the Celebration Bowl. Now you look at the key departures. Cam Peters departs. Josiah Rockwell, 1,100-yard receiver. He transfers out. And then you got Trevor Randall. He was one of my favorite players in the SWAC last year. And of course, a couple other guys that contributed on that team last year. Key returners, man. You look at Chase Bingman, freshman last year, co-freshman of the year. He comes in, man, very solid guy. Calvin McMillan comes back for another year at that offensive lineman spot. Guthaki, Eric Zachary. Love Eric Zachary, man. Ball hawk. Trayvon Jones has a chance to take another step this year at tight end. Then you see Ojo and Malik Mason. So, you got a lot of guys who return, but then you look at this newcomers list, man. I mean, this is a who's who of guys. I'll let you take the wheel right here. Talk about that.
Well, Des Thomas isn't on campus anymore, so we
Okay.
could take
All
him
right.
off.
All right.
But yeah, he fell. He was like practice squad level quarterback. Like, he fell out the quarterback rotation very, very quickly. I'll say this, man. Their portal class was outstanding. It was the best portal class in HBCU football, in my opinion. I think we had on 5th nationally in the FCS. Man, they added so much talent in the secondary. Like, their secondary is going to be outstanding, man. Cameron Canterbury from ULM, I think it's going to be the Trevor Randall replacement for them. Rondell Carter from Troy, Namani Harris, who, if you remember, was at Texas Southern for a while, but played at NAU for a while as well. You go and get a Jabari Kirkendall from Bama State, but I think it really starts with Xavier Turner Knox from Lenore-Ryan. Like, he's might be the guy at running back that they probably turn to right after Bingman. Obviously, Bingman is going to be their main guy. The question is going to be the defensive line. I think they check all the boxes at linebacker. They check all the boxes in the secondary. It's just, man, that defensive line really came on strong at the end of last year. And if they can't produce the same interior consistency, because the defense that they run, if it's not strong on the interior, man, listen, there are some real lanes that open up in the run game for the opponent, and you can get really abused. And you can't get to the quarterback. Even with all those guys back in coverage, it's really hard to cover forever in the back end of the defense. So you have to get pressure on the quarterback, and they do a really good job being creative with blitzes, being creative with where they bring the pressure from, who's coming on any given play. The real thing is I think they upgraded at quarterback. And I know everyone is acting like there's this big thing. Listen, if you just go turn on the film, we know who's going to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, Caden Smith.
No.
Nope.
No, I think he's like 1B in the quarterback battle. I think it's Preston Brown.
Okay. All right.
Listen, yeah, Preston Brown, I think, is going to be the guy for them. I mean, this kid last year, man, completed 70% of his passes, 2,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, 4 picks, and had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. He opened the season, his opening game last year, man. He went 11 for 11 for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns before he went and sat down. Like, bro, what are we doing? I mean, and he had multiple games where he only missed, he had a game where he went 20 for 22, 25 of 29. Like, this kid was unbelievable. And at the season-ending game against Lenore-Ryan, who was a really good team, he goes for 485, 5 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Kid is just, I mean, listen, it's funny, he's not an NFL guy. I just want to throw that out there. He's not going to be an NFL guy. He's a little shorter, but he's like 210, 215, can handle in terms of just the beat down of the season, the wear and tear of the season. But then if something happens to him, I think Caden Smith's the number 2 guy. And I think the thing here is Preston Brown's got 1 year of eligibility. Caden Smith has multiple. The goal for Tremaine, let's just say he comes back to PV next year. You have a year of Preston Brown, and then guess what? We have no questions going into next year. It's Caden Smith's offense. He has a year in the system, and then we know what he's going to be. And I think Tevin Carter is athletic enough where you're still going to see him have packages just because they respect him, right? He's stuck around the program, he's experienced, and I think they're going to have packages for him. But with the offensive line and weapons they have, you got to go with the most proven quarterback and the best passer. The best arm on the roster is Preston Brown. Now, the best athlete's Caden Smith, but Preston Brown's the best overall quarterback.
Got you, man. Yeah. This is where I landed, everybody. This is where I landed. I'm going 8-4. And again, the 4 losses, I mean, can you question? Tarleton State, 5th in America. Baylor. Stephen F. Austin, 13th in America. I mean, at Alabama State on the back end. I mean, maybe they win that game 9-3. But worst case is right here. I don't see them being lower than this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I know everyone thinks this team's going to take a step back, and it's weird how and I say this on my show all the time, and I know you try to do your best to dispel that. Like, it's weird how narratives get started in like the media space, and there's like this narrative around a handful of teams that they lost so much, and there's no continuity, and like PV has more continuity than like almost all the teams in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And they signed the best portal class, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think they walk through the West. Like it's going to be a battle in the East, but I think if PV's not in the SWAC championship, I will be floored next year.
Yeah, like you said, I don't see anyone in the West beating them. I don't
None.
either. We don't either.
And listen,
don't.
you know what's gonna, and this is what frustrates. Hang on, let me just double check. Are you a voter in the that new HBCU poll?
No, and I should be, but I'm not.
I agree. I should be, but I'm not. And I know some people who are, and we'll maybe discuss that offline. I don't want to put anyone on blast, but there's some people that I know. There's some people that I know are voters that shouldn't be. But anyway, but what's going to happen is, let's just say this is worst case. They start 1-3. You're going to have voters who drop them below teams that only have like D2 wins. And I'm going to be pissed. And I'm calling everybody out who does that.
Yep.
Any poll that I see have anybody with a bunch of D2 wins over PV, if it's competitive, I'm calling them out.
Yep. Just get
ready for it.
Because
you don't know what you're watching. And then what's going to happen is PV is going to go on a run. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, well, yeah, but didn't they lose to Tarleton? And Tarleton's going to be sitting there at like number 2 in the nation. And we're just going to ignore it.
Right. Right. They said, what if they start on?
Oh, well, that's a different conversation. That's a whole different conversation. That's a whole listen, if you lose to Texas Southern, listen, I can't defend you at that point.
Yeah, me either, man.
If you lose to Texas Southern with Cam McCoy at quarterback, pack it up. Like everything we talked about in the box at this point. Like just wrap it up.
Right, man. But yeah, I do believe that that at the end of the day, Prairie View's gonna win the West again. And you know, these numbers, they can go either way. But at the end of the day, man, I see Alcorn and Grambling having a nice fight there, trying to, be number 2. Yeah,
I think
they could.
A chance they could tie. Like I could see like PV being 7-1, and then Grambling and Alcorn being 6-2 or 5-3. Like I think they could both. I think the middle of the conference, and I would flip Texas Southern. I'm a little bit lower on them.
Yeah, put them with Southern. Yeah. Flip that. Yep.
Yeah, flip it. Like, and I think Southern could be 4-4-ish in conference and be right there too. And I think that's where I would have it. Is UAPB is probably 1-7. I think Texas Southern is probably 1-7, 2-6, and then Southern somewhere right there around 4-4. So I would have Southern over Texas Southern, and probably Grambling Alcorn tied for second. And if you made me pick, I would probably lean Alcorn over Grambling right now for the second place.
Yeah, I like that. All right, everybody, like the stream, because now we're going to the East, and we start with Valley. Shout out to Valley. And I know you spend a lot of time with this gentleman, Terrell Buckley, entering his second season. Last year, they were 2-10, 1-7 in the SWAC, but that one defeated FAMU for the second straight year. They were 97th in total defense and 114th in total offense. So you see, their kicker, I can't leave out their kicker, man. He made all SWAC. Listen, Valley, they played hard last year. They were outmatched in many of their games, and then there were a few games that they should have got, like Texas Southern. The fake
Southern.
punt.
Remember
and
the Southern game, they just ran out of time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But so you look at it, key departures. It's kind of funny that, this team, they lose Prince to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. But you look at some of the returners, man. You got Jamari Stokes, Josh Brown's back at quarterback. That's a great question. Can Josh Brown stay healthy at QB? He's going to need to. There's different things here with this team, every year. And, so this is where I'm going to say this. I'm going to do this early. I'm going to move right here to where I have them. But I say this every year. And this is me saying it for the first time ahead of 2026. Valley is going to get somebody. I don't know who it is, but they're going to get somebody. You as SWAC fans, you better hope it's not your team. Listen, I'm an Alabama A&M grad, as all of you know. Listen, I am hoping that at last game, it is not us. Go ahead, man. You give us what you think about Valley.
Yeah, I think if they get someone, it's probably Bethune right there, right before a bye week at home. Yep. I think that's probably where I would have it. Maybe Texas Southern, but man, going on the road's a little bit tough. I also think, like you mentioned, if Alabama A&M, we've seen Alabama A&M be out of the SWAC, out of the SWAC East race, and they just sleepwalk into that game. We saw it under Maynard.
Yep.
We saw PV do it a while back. Like, we've seen teams that last week just sleepwalk into that one, just being like, oh, we got to end the season with Valley. FAMU did it last year.
Yep.
And so I think that game is a possible. I think I'll be optimistic. I'll have them 3-9, 1-7 in the SWAC.
Yeah, I've got them. I have their best case at 4-8 because
I can see that.
the Bethune-Cookman and maybe who knows, who knows. But listen, man, this team, they're gonna play hard every week. They're gonna give you their best. You know that. But yeah, I said it first time. They're going to get somebody. That's a guarantee. And also, while we're here, it's kind of hilarious when he said they're going 500 this year. Book it. It's funny that, the writer down there in Mississippi, he said, if they go 6-6, he's going to walk to Itabena. Man, crazy. So shout out to Valley. All right, let's go to Bethune-Cookman. Last year, 6-6. Now this is really, this was a crazy 6-6. I'll say that after, it was a crazy 6-6. I'll say what I mean by that here in a second. So this was their first SWAC winning season. They joined the league in 2021. Woody is entering his fourth season. Defeated FAMU for the first time since 2019 to finish 6-6 on that pass at the end. 6 players named it an all-SWAC team, right? They threw the ball everywhere. T29 in passing offense. 30th in total offense. That won them some games. But what also lost them some games was that 100th in rush defense. They allowed a lot of teams to run the ball on them. You look at the departures, both of the quarterbacks who played last year, Javon Ross, Malik Huggins. These are guys who you heard their names called all the time. The craziest thing about their 6-6, man, like they beat Southern, who had a down year. They beat UAPB. They beat Valley. They beat us, Alabama A&M, in a shootout, right? When they won. But when they lost, boy, did they lose. Like Alabama State.
Yeah.
So, man, crazy stuff. But these are some of the returners. Christian Loving, Kamani Robinson, who Coach Woody even said at Media Day, he's just glad they were able to keep him. He was a freshman All-American. He said that. He said, we're just glad we were able to keep him. But these are some of the guys you got. And then here's some of the top newcomers. So you got Tyler Jefferson, who comes over from FAMU. And you've also got Amari Jones, who's in the mix at quarterback. But these are some of the guys that they have coming in. But we'll see what they got. Talk about Bethune-Cookman.
Worried is the word.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Tyler Jefferson's fine, but like the fact that, he didn't even really make it at FAM last year kind of gives you a little bit, especially with how bad FAM was last year.
Right.
I just, like, what is his ceiling? Because I do think, listen, you got to give those quarterbacks last year credit, man. Like they could throw it, and they had a ton of weapons on the outside. But you look at that roster now, lots of questions at wide receiver, lots of
Yep.
questions at quarterback. And my thing is like your defense was terrible last year. And if your
Hmm.
defense remains terrible and your offense takes a step back, how many of those shootout games do you end up losing on the back on like this side of it? And so I just think the turnover might be too much, and I am a little bit concerned about the overall trajectory of the program. And
Hmm.
I wonder if was last year a blip. And you mentioned all the teams they beat, and none of which were particularly good. And so you just beat up on a bunch of bad teams, and then it was a fine year, and Woody probably saved his job with the Florida Classic win. But at the end of the day, like, are they that, or are they the team we've seen for the first 2 years where they lose a bunch of close games and they're just not really a good team? We're gonna find out this year.
Yeah. So this is where I'm going, man. I got 4, and really this could be 3 if you think about the Pine Bluff game. And it could even be less than that if you think about it, maybe Valley. You never know. But
Going
Stetson,
winless in the SWAC would be tough. If he goes winless in the SWAC, they're gonna fire him.
yeah. And then like the Stetson game, that's a swing game. I got them winning that. Again, we said it when we were talking about MEAC. You better beat Virginia Lynchburg, man. And that's crazy. A lot of fans, they're really upset because that's their homecoming game against Lynchburg, September 19th, early.
God,
Uh,
that's gonna be such a hot homecoming. Good
yeah,
lord.
man. Crazy. Crazy. I mean, they've got some quality teams. I mean, that's one heck of a home schedule, though. South Carolina State, Alabama State, Jackson State, Grambling. That's a really good home
They're
schedule.
gonna make some money. They're gonna make some money because all those fan bases are gonna travel.
Yep. Yep. But I have them at 4, 2-6 in the SWAC. Really, my worst case, I mean, really, you can even go down to 2-10, actually. So
I think if you're projecting, like, putting money on it, it's 3-9 or 4-8. I think you're right there. It's one of those 2, and it just kinda comes down to which of the can they get past UAPB and Valley, or do they slip up in one of those games? I think those are the most likely scenarios. I think 3-9 or
exactly.
4-8.
Exactly. So Bethune-Cookman in 2026. All right, now we go to my Alabama A&M Bulldogs. I know A&M fans, you would have loved to me have had us a lot higher on this list, but you will know why as I get into it. Sam Shade entering his second season, 4-8 last year. One SWAC win against Valley. Spencer Region takes over that offensive line. And Jamal Fobbs is moved from running backs to wide receiver. And Mac Howard comes from offensive analyst to tight ends. And there's a couple other changes that they had as well. Last year, they started 3-1. It started looking real good after that Lane game. And they started 3 quarterbacks due to injuries, but multiple injuries. And they struggled to score and defend. They had no depth. And it was a tough year, man. They couldn't stop folks. You see, they were still serviceable on passing offense, but when you look at 107 in total defense and 112 in rush, could not stop the run. I think Ahmad Miller and Denario Davenport are still getting some yards out there. I think Kamani Robinson's still getting some yards out there rushing, right? So they got to be better. And also, Sam Shade, he immediately said, we know we got to be better on defense. And they went and they spent some time with D'Amico Ryans down there with the Texans to try to figure out a couple of different schemes. So now you switch over, you look at some of the departures. I talked about Pierre going to Alabama State, Ramir Lewis going to Texas Southern. Tyquez Richardson went to Georgia. Trevante Abner was the one all SWAC guy that they had. Now, the key guys they got coming back, Quad Brown, obviously. We continue to say this now. I think this is the 5th year you and I have said this in a row. If he stays healthy, you always got a chance. But if he's not healthy, now you look at Eric Hanley. You've also got 3 guys back on the offensive line. Running back is a question. They could not run the ball at all last year. So there's a lot of questions at offensive line, What do you do to help supplement the 3 guys also with a new offensive line coach? But this is defense, defense, defense. And these are some of the newcomers. You know, they went into the portal. They went and got a couple guys from Auburn, you know, got a guy from Eastern Michigan. They got some guys, but the question will be execution and health. So Alabama A&M, Blue.
I don't know. I just this is the team I like. I mentioned in the MEAC struggling with Howard. This is the team I really struggle with because if I'm betting on it, the defense almost just odds wise has to be better. It can't be any worse than it was last year. I mean, it really came unhinged down the stretch. And if you have a defensive head coach and you have another year now to bring in additions that fit your scheme, there's no excuse to be that bad. And it's funny, I was on Lionel's show, PV versus Everybody, earlier this year, and he asked me a really good question about, whether the SWAC was a passing or rushing league. And even though most people would classify the SWAC as like a pass first league, just looking at the data, man, like you don't win the SWAC if you can't stop the run and you can't run the football. And those are the 2 things you mentioned were the worst parts of this Alabama A&M team. And that is like a recipe for disaster in the SWAC if you want to be competitive. Because at the end of the day, you look at the elite teams in the league, they run the football. Like that's the basis of everything. And they stop the run well. And they force teams to get real uncomfortable, keep them in 3rd and longs and in 2nd and longs and keep them off schedule. And that's something they couldn't do. And you mentioned, I don't know who's going to be the number 1 running back this year. Like, I don't know if you're ranking running back rooms. I don't think you would have them in the top 5 right now.
Nope.
Maybe even the top 8, 9. Like, I mean, it gets to the point where you got to have someone really step up. And then the other part is defensive line just got pushed around last year. Did you go and get some size? Now, listen, Antonio Coleman was a super highly touted kid out from where I live down here in like the Mobile area. He was out of Saraland and was a stud when he played down here at Saraland. But again, he didn't really play at Auburn. Is he ready to step up? I don't know, man. Like, he didn't play last year. And so we'll see what his development is. And so I think this is a really crucial year for Shade, because if he doesn't put it together, Wayne, me and you come on this show next year and the seat is real hot. Like,
yes, sir.
Scorching hot. But if he wins a handful of key games, man, he could set himself up to where me and you were talking about A&M as a potential dark horse to come out of the East next year. Like, that's where we're talking in terms of the range here with some of the young talent they have.
Absolutely. So this is where I landed with the team. I have them at 7-5. Worst case, I have them at 5-7. Again, I don't think, everything is hinging on that first one. If you don't win that first game, oh boy, this thing could get ugly. You've got Miles, you got Bowie State. Now, Texas Southern, you see that down there in Valley and Bethune-Cookman. I've got them winning the games against the teams that they are on paper better than or supposed to be better than. And they've never won at Florida A&M, like ever in history. They've never won there.
It's crazy.
No, they've played 20 times. They've lost. They've only beaten FAMU 3 times in 20 tries.
0-20 is nasty.
Yeah, they're 3-17 all time, and they've never won in Tallahassee. So, and then the Jackson State, they're not on Jackson State's level. Maybe could they be on Grambling's level? I don't know. That's homecoming. I don't think they're on Alabama State's level, and I don't think they're on Prairie View's level either. So that's why I landed at 7-5, 3-5. But people will look at 7 wins, and you can ask, if they did this, is this good enough?
I was about to say, like, listen, when you first put it up there, I was sick to my stomach. I was like 7-5.
Yeah.
But then I look at the wins.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne, I'm gonna be honest with you. Listen, and I agree with Timona in the chat. 7-5 is a great year. This is the nastiest looking 7-5 I think
sure
I can ever
is,
imagine.
Isn't it?
I mean, good Lord, dude. Like, that is like, listen, you want to talk about like you're on a diet and eating empty calories. This is the most empty calorie filled 7-5 that I could picture in my mind.
Seriously. And that's how I felt when I put this together. Because I said these 7 games that I have us winning, I mean, we're better than these guys. But
Well, I mean, yeah, like it's 7-5, but really, if you exclude, because y'all play 2 like not very good D2 teams,
facts.
so it's really like 5-5 is like the
5 and
real
5,
record,
correct.
and like I think maybe I think I might lean a little bit closer to 6-6 because I do like I mentioned earlier that Howard game might be a toss up, but
Yep.
it looking at the schedule, we just talked. I talked about how this year was important for Sam Shade. If he's not above 500, Wayne, like I said, he could be on the hot seat going into year 3. Man, like we might have to have a real conversation if he's like 5-7 this year with this schedule.
Yep. But if you get one of those games, FAMU, maybe. You never know. Grambling, you never know. But
could you imagine, like, now that I'm looking at this, like, let's just say, like, you guys win all the games you're supposed to, right? Grambling always has a game that they choke. That's just the DNA of that program. Listen, how about this? Instead of trading the Bayou Classic, they said we'll sell out for A&M so we can beat Jackson again. That's what they'll make a different trade next year. Like if y'all get the Grambling game though, that puts y'all at 8-4, 4-4 in conference. And what happens if FAM's not as good as we think? I mean, Wayne, like we could be sitting on the postseason show here. Y'all might be 9-3, and
exactly.
I still might not be sure if y'all were a good team.
Right.
Whew, that's crazy. That's insane. Like now that I'm really looking at the schedule, that's wild.
They could be 9-3 with 3 losses to the 3 best teams in the SWAC, and
they
probably not even close. Not even competitive.
They're like 20, 30-point losses, but they're 9-3 and receiving top 25 votes because people don't watch the games.
Exactly, man. So yeah, it's weird, but we'll see what happens with she said 9-3. That's a good team. That's hilarious. All right, we'll move forward. All right, now we go to FAMU. And this was another tough evaluation for me, but I will explain. All right, so they were 5-7 last year. Obviously, James Colsey exit stage left. Quinn Gray comes in. Shout out to Quinn Gray too, man. He was on Paul Feinbaum yesterday. That was pretty dope. Led Albany State to some really greatness, man. Did really well with them. He gets Isaiah Knowles to come with him. Ryan Lewis comes over from UAB as a DC. That matters a good amount, man. That's a really, really good get for them to get Ryan Lewis. All right, so here's what happened for them last year. They lost 3 home games in a season for the first time in a decade. Been a long time since they lost 3 home games, and they weren't even close, those 3 home games. 41-16 to JSU, 42-14 to Alabama State, and I think it was 42-7 to North Carolina Central. Those are the 3 home games they lost. They lost the Florida Classic. And then here's the craziest stuff, man. 101st in total defense. That's something that is definitely not what FAMU is known for, right? And also rush defense. They struggled stopping the run. And then they were, right there at 69th in scoring offense, which is weird when you look at that stat. They committed only 10 turnovers. But like you said, RJ held the ball a lot, took a lot of sacks. The punter was pretty busy, all that kind of stuff. So,
oh, God.
So that's where they are. So, now we flip over here, key departures, which was such a surprise that they could not run the ball last year. Ashton Grable and Charles Davis, those guys were first teamers the year before. Ashton Grable was a first teamer last year, which was crazy. All right. So you see the switchovers. Now, I'm really, 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 really high on Jamal Haley. And the reason why I'm high on Jamal Haley is you saw what Jamal Haley did down the stretch. That guy, if there's a guy who can go 80 yards from the running back position in the SWAC, he's that guy who can do it. He switched his number from 28 to 2. So Kamen, he was probably their best defender last year. had some good tackles for losses. And then, wide receivers. So now you look at, obviously, with a new team, a new coach, new team, these are the guys that you're looking to see can click. I mentioned Isaiah Knowles. He threw for 4,700 yards in 2 seasons and threw for almost 50 touchdowns with Albany State. I know he's stepping up in class, moving from D2 to FCS, but from what I've seen, he's got the goods and got the potential to take them somewhere, possibly. You look at Mike Peterson, people talk a lot about him, Deuce Petty. So these are some of these guys that they got coming over. So FAMU.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 things. One, what frustrated me about the team last year is how are you FAMU in Florida, right? Like when you get past the P4 teams, right, and the FBS schools, FAMU should have their pick of the best athletes out of the state of Florida every year. How are they so bad at wide receiver? What happened to what was it, the Rack Boys?
Yeah.
This
Yep.
it was like last year just to me was disappointing because FAMU, the one position you're supposed to be good at is wide receiver every year. And it felt like the wide receiver room was just kind of underwhelming for me. They had they had a little bit of talent, right? But none that really popped off the screen for me. And then the next thing is trenches, man. You got to figure out that starting 5 on the offensive line. And then the thing that FAMU has had over the past few years that's really helped their defense is an elite defensive line, particularly at edge rusher. We've
Yep.
seen those edge rushers really raise the ceiling of this defense. And I thought last year, I mean, dude, their leading sack guy was what, like 4 sacks last year, I think?
Yep.
Man, that just isn't going to work at FAMU. I mean, like you have to have those guys like Isaiah Land and the Geno Hunts and those type of guys, right? The Anthony Dunns that really elevate the defense. And I think they brought in a ton of guys that are good, but I do think they're a little bit undersized. And that's what I am worried about is just like the wear and tear of this team throughout the year. And sometimes you get that with D2 guys coming in on the offensive and defensive lines. Can those guys handle the D1 speed and size? And listen, we saw Chinnis Berry. Those guys that he brought could do it. But we've also, listen, man, I can pick a lot of examples from the FCS where those guys didn't turn out very good. And so I think that the significant upgrade in coaching and quarterback, this team should be better last year. And they'll probably win 2 more games, Wayne, just because they have a better head coach right now and a way better quarterback. But man, the surrounding talent, I still think is going to take a year for Quinn Gray to get it to where he needs to get it at.
Yeah. Now I know people are talking about the APR, and listen, man, these guys, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. These guys are going to be hell to play against. And the reason why they're going to be hell to play against, because they got nothing to lose. These guys are going to come out here every single week and they're going to battle. They're going to lay it all out there. They're going to play some inspired football. I know a lot of people saying, oh, well, they can't play for the SWAC championship. Man, listen, you got some guys that are seniors in that room. Isaiah Knowles, the aforementioned Jamal Haley. You got guys that want to leave a mark this year. You got guys who are probably going to be in the program next year that want to leave a mark on the program. So these guys they're going to be hell to play against. And that's reflected. This is where I landed. It's kind of hilarious when we talked about A&M schedule, but it's almost the same thing of how I picked the wins with this schedule. I mean, if you look at it, like they've beaten Southern 6 straight times, right? And they get them at home. I mean, when you look at 7-5, am I missing something here? Because I looked at it, I said, hey, these guys, they're gonna let it all hang out. They're gonna play hard, man. Like for real.
Lots of empty calories.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think the at Alcorn's going to be like the at Alcorn kind of is the swing game here for them. Like that's going to determine like their real ceiling. Cause man, that's a real, at the end of the day, like however you feel about Alcorn, man, going to the reservation in November.
It's different.
Listen, man, it was freezing the last time I was up there in November, and on top of that, too, it's just a tough place to play, man. Just the travel, being there, and it's a good home field advantage for Alcorn, and I just don't think they got the talent level of Alabama State or Jackson, and getting those teams on the road, and then your out of conference draw being South Carolina State, the year that coming off a Celebration Bowl with so much continuity, so much talent. I think if they go 7-5, 5-3 in the SWAC, and this is the way it pans out, I think it's fine. I do agree with you though. That I think best case is 8-4. If you can flip that off corn game, you're
Mm-hmm.
8-4, 6-2 in the SWAC. I don't know about you, regardless of APR and all the jokes and everything. If they're 8-4, 6-2 in the SWAC, your only
Mm-hmm.
losses are to Miami, South Carolina State, Bama State, and Jackson. I think that's an A year for Quinn Gray year one.
Absolutely. Like I said, these boys, they're gonna be hell. I don't care what you got, what people say. A team that's got nothing to lose, man, they're gonna put it to you. They're gonna try to give you their best every week. You know this. All right, Alabama State. I know this is what a lot of people were wondering. They said, "Wow, Wayne, where were you going with
Yeah,
these last two?"
the views are going way up right now.
Yep.
Tune in to see who gets picked here.
All right, Alabama State. Last year they were 10-2, 7-1 in SWAC play. Eddie Robinson entering his 5th season. Tony Hall comes in at offensive coordinator. And last year, Andrew Body, he was a SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. Man, offensively, those guys, they were explosive. Averaged 42 points a game, which was tied for first in the FCS. They were tied with Tarleton State in offense. They finished 8th in the FCS in yards rushing, 22nd in passing yards. And what Eddie Robinson said, their secondary saved them last year. They were 7th, tied for 7th in the FCS with 15 interceptions. And they were 9th in turnover margin. But that one glaring thing, the only SWAC loss was at Jackson State. And that was what kept them out of that SWAC championship. You look at the departures, Jalen Jones. You look at a lot of these guys, man, solid guys. I mean, first team all SWAC, second team all SWAC. I mean, guys that are like playing on other rosters or graduated. Now you look at the guys who are returning. Obviously, Andrew Body is the headliner. He's the guy that people are hitching the wagons to. Jamari Hostclaw, 676 yards rushing, 17 TDs coming back. Baker on the offensive line, Tayshawn Sims, ball hawk. Has a chance to be right up there with Defensive Player of the Year in the SWAC. A chance. And you look at some of the other guys that they got coming back. All right. And then we get in now to the newcomers. Frank Pierre, can't be understated his abilities. Mitchell Robinson, a guy who they've been talking. I know Robert Morris wasn't very good, but this guy's a pretty solid player. You got some pretty good dudes, man, that they brought in through the portal. There's a lot that is expected of this team. So I'll hand you the wheel, Blue.
Man, listen, you're in Alabama. I'm disappointed. You don't even have arguably okay, you got their best transfer. Randall King is by far their best transfer. 1,000%. Where's my guy TJ Ramsey?
Yeah, charges to my head and not my heart, man. I forgot
him. I think he's going to be a star. And I think with him and Holtzclaw, they complement each other so well. And I think you look at Ramsey last year, I'm looking at 1,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, averaged 106 yards per game at Aurora last year. And on top of that, Wayne, he's a receiving threat and an elite special teams weapon. I mean, a problem in terms of the return game. And the funny part is they already have an All-American kick returner on the team. So they're going to have 2 guys with All-American level accolades to their name in terms of return specialists. I think to me, man, the obvious big question, and it's not the one everyone thinks. Yes,
right.
We could spend an hour talking about Andrew Body staying healthy. I got you. The biggest question for this team to me is defensive line.
Yes.
You look back, let's compare, right? Let's go back. What was it? 2 years ago, even 2 to 3 years ago, right? Those first 2 defenses compared to last year, the biggest difference, in my opinion, watching the film, looking at the roster, was man, they had no elite guys on the front four. And really in the front seven, to be fair, like last year that really popped off the screen for me. All their like elite talent was in the secondary. Sims, Patterson, all like
Yep.
the safeties and corners. It was the biggest drop off was you lost to Bubba at Mike. You lose those guys off the edge that were getting you like 15 tackles for loss a year. Like you lost to playmakers, and I call them play. You know, we usually reserve the term playmaker for wide receivers, running backs, but defensively you have playmakers too. You have good starters, you have superstars, but you also have playmakers because when you look at who's getting the tackles for loss, the sacks, the interceptions, those guys are your playmakers defensively. And I felt like Bama State took a big step back with playmakers in that front seven. And if they can address that this year, man, like this team could be really good. And again, we talk about narratives in the SWAC. And what I hate sometimes talking like doing preseason stuff is you call out one team, like if you big up one team's continuity, everyone's like, well, what about these question marks? Well, then you
Right.
talk about another team, and when you call out those question marks and you try to be fair, they're like, "Oh no, that's just replaced. Don't worry about that." It was like, no, I can't worry about this team and not worry about like I gotta if we're weighing holes in the roster, we gotta be equal here. And what's kind of been overlooked here, Wayne, is defensive continuity. You look at the big three, right? And I said the big three is PV, Bama State, and Jackson. PV has the most offensive continuity out of all the teams
Mm-hmm.
of those big three. No one really talks about it, but Bama State has the most continuity defensively, Wayne, and it's like significantly. Like, I mean, a massive difference. Like, they return like 55-60% of their production. Jackson only returns 25% of their defensive production, and PV, I think, is even lower than that. They're like 25% defensive production. So this defense is super, super experienced. They had a lot of young guys that they had to play because of injuries last year. And I do think that kind of gets overlooked. And obviously, the bigger question on the other side, man, is can Andrew stay healthy? I get that. But when
Mm-hmm.
he's healthy, man, like that dude is a problem. And like the easiest way to tell if someone doesn't watch football or know football is that they say he's not good or he's overrated. They
Right.
didn't watch a single game. Like if that's your argument against Bama State, I can't take your football opinion seriously.
Absolutely. And I think too, I think what's also important is that these guys last year, obviously, they were throwing the ball all over the place. They were running on teams. But when they needed to make those key stops in the big game, they didn't have it. So, with all that being said, this is where I landed on them. I went same record as last year. 10-2, 7-1. The Troy game, I think they could possibly get the Troy one. But
Do
I
you know
landed.
how nasty? Do you know how nasty it would be is if they beat Troy and still lost to Jackson, and we had to sit here at the end of the year and say like E-Rob still didn't go to the SWAC championship, bro.
Right.
Jackson fans would have the ultimate trump card till the end of time if that happened.
Man. I
God,
mean, I think best case, I think if they did lose the Troy game, I think they could go 11-1. You know, and I am splitting hairs when I'm talking about Jackson State and Alabama State. Okay? I'm splitting hairs when I'm talking about this. I have so many cases for each one of them to be at the top of the East. But I landed in this sense of Alabama State, you got to prove it to the world that you can do it. And until you prove it to me, I can't pick you. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you've been right there, but now this is your time to prove it because you've got all of your toughest games in the state of Alabama, with the exception of if you look at Bethune-Cookman, not Bethune-Cookman. If you look at the Texas Southern game, and the reason why I mentioned the Texas Southern game is that that's one of those kind of funky, weird games with him going back to Texas Southern. One of those funky, weird games that you see come out of nowhere. And also the Prairie View game, you never know. So that's where I kind of landed. I landed at 10-2. with the best case at 11-1. And again, I'm splitting hairs when I'm talking about them and Jackson State. So, yeah. Your thoughts here? You agree?
I have no issue if people want to just say, prove it to me. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's funny because that's kind of the point. Remember, if you remember in 2023, it was like TC's first year and everyone just kind of looked with Willie and was like, listen, man, like, we all think you should win this year, but Jesus, man, like, can you get it done? You know, is this the year? And then Willie answered the question mark, right? And obviously he left not long after, so we didn't really get to continue that. I don't think that would happen with E-Rob. I think this is the most crucial year for Bama State in terms of program trajectory, because I think they hear, like, you could say you don't listen to the media, you don't see the projections, all that. Everyone in that locker room knows that they're projected to win the East. Everyone knows that you got the SWAC Player of the Year coming back. You have all this defensive continuity. If they fall short this year, man, it's really, really hard as a program not to let that doubt seep into the program and say, if we couldn't get it done this year, if we lose to Jackson or PV and that keeps us out of the SWAC championship, then, I mean, bro, when? Like, when is it going to happen? And that's a real question. So I don't mind you saying, prove it to me, because I'm going to be honest, and we could put the schedules up together if you wanted. I actually think Bama State and Jackson are probably both going to finish 10-2, and it's going to come down to who wins that game.
Yep. 2004 was the last time Bama State. 2004. So, all right, now we go over to Jackson State. And everybody, make sure you like the stream. All right, so last year, 9-3, 7-1 in the SWAC. Won their second consecutive East championship. TC Taylor enters into year number 4, 28-9 overall. Staff changes: Raekwon Bethea, new D-line coach. Trey Updegrow has been, man, they've been talking about his work. Director of sports performance. And then Breland Speaks, man. Really cool hire, comes out of the NFL, played for years with the Chiefs, Mississippi guy. He's a defensive analyst and outside linebacker coach. All right. Last year, second consecutive SWAC East title, third in the FCS in rush offense. They were fourth in the FCS in total offense. I mean, man, you win a lot of games when you put 32 points per game on the and average 460 yards a game. And they were 21st in the country in total defense. Very stellar. Now, key departures. Man, a lot of household names, man. I mean, man, there are teams that go careers and don't get guys of this quality that come out of the building, like Quincy Ivory's and Jacobian Morgan's and Travis Terrell's. I mean, the list goes on with these guys, man. Now you look at the guys who return. And these guys are being expected to carry some really, really good big roles here this year. You look at Nate Rembert, the slot machine, as I like to call him. He was second team all SWAC. He enters his final year. Jared Lockhart, a lot that are expected of Jared Lockhart this year, coming back as the co-freshman of the year from last year. Jonas Fertillion comes back from injury at wide receiver. Cam Salas, he sat with me at Media Day. He said this is a revenge tour. He said that's the biggest reason why he came out of the portal and came back to Jackson State. Quay Davis, the returning guy on the offensive line. A lot's going to be expected to anchor that. Amari Matthews, leader. Nate Blunt is a guy that everybody down there is really excited to talk about and see. He waited his turn, and you're going to get your chance to see Nate Blunt get in there and get busy. Jency Riley, the old man of the bunch, and then J.J. Chisholm and Kamari Rogers back there in that secondary. Now for the top newcomers. A lot gets said about Virgil Swipe Marshall, and that's for good reason. He is a stud.
Yeah, he's going to be all SWAC, calling it all SWAC next year.
Yeah, and then, that rebuilt defensive line, you look at the names. Went to Eastern Michigan with Duke Clayton and Messiah Blair. Amarion Ware from ULM, Keyshawn Hudson, Rob Adamson. A lot of guys on that defensive line to rebuild. But you've also got guys like Ja'Cory Hargon, guys who played a lot last year. You look at these guys, man. So I'll let you take the wheel here.
So I actually, let me just double check because I'm pretty sure because I just wrote a preview on the team. Messiah Blair is no longer with the team, so you can take
Okay.
him off.
All right.
He's somebody that ended up not making it on campus. So
Okay.
yeah, he'll be gone. So they say they do still have Duke Clayton, who is going to be important. I mean, the names to know here in terms of the incoming transfers, I think it starts with Terrence Hibbler coming in from Mississippi State. I personally think, I mean, that I talked to a really, really good source actually the other day from Jackson. They said he is a Jeremiah Williams clone, and
Ooh, boy.
I think he's bigger than Jeremiah. Like he's not undersized. I mean, that kid's a former 4-star, was the Mississippi 5A Defensive Player of the Year, bro. He had 21 sacks senior in high school from
Mm,
the D tackle spot, like the nose.
mm.
Like the kid was murdering people out there on the field, man. I mean, just really, really good. I think the secondary is where I was really impressed. You know, I talked with I talked about PV secondary, and I think those were two of the best secondary classes we had in the FCS. You mentioned Swipe Marshall. I think the underrated addition, I don't think you have him up there, is Jalen Foster from
Yes.
ULM.
I saw him
Um,
too on my list as well. It just
yeah,
couldn't fit up on the screen.
yeah. So Foster actually started games for ULM last year. Like he was actually I think he was ULM's who was the kid, Trevor Randall replacement when Trevor transferred to PV last year. I mean, he started 5 games, was one of the best tacklers in the FBS last year in terms of Pro Football Focus. And then you already mentioned Swipe, and that doesn't even include Samson Israel from Memphis, who's probably going to
Right.
start at corner for them. I think he's going to be a starter at corner for them. He played a ton last year, had like 17 tackles, a pick, and 3 PBUs. I think they upgraded. And listen, they still bring back KJ Chisholm and those guys, but I actually think Jackson needed to recruit over the returning guys they had come back, because that secondary was a little iffy at times last year, especially at
Mm-hmm.
corner. And I think you saw TC put a lot of effort, and even Quinn at DC effort to increase the I was, we talk about raising the ceiling of the room. I think the real goal there was to raise the floor of the room. I think the
Yeah.
floor of the room was a little bit too low when you want to look at championship rosters. And the other name, not to drag this on, is Melvin Collins from Western Kentucky. I think I called, listen, I've called a few Jackson transfer offensive linemen that were going to be all conference, and they've all turned out to be. Melvin Collins is going to be all SWAC next year. I think he's going to be. Quay's great. I think he's going to push Quay for potentially be the best offensive lineman on this unit.
Yeah. I mean, it's listen, they got a lot of guys that you have, but they're gonna have to put it together. And in this day and age, I don't have any doubts about this staff putting it together. Again, like I said before, I was splitting hairs with these teams. And this is where I landed with Jackson State. I put best case, honestly, and you know what? I really, 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 when I did the first draft of this, I had 11-0. But something inside of me just couldn't just say 11-0. I just couldn't say. But
It's the bulldog in you. It's the bulldog in you. You can't pick a team in your own division to go 11-0. It's the bulldog in you.
But I have best case 11-0. Seriously, I think this team could go. I think this team could go undefeated in the regular season.
Bro, this schedule is like, I mean, just disgustingly, like, I mean, it's to the, like, we talked about the pressure with Bama State, and they have the pressure because they haven't won. If Jackson doesn't win 10 games next year, we're having a meeting at the end of the year. Like, what in the hell happened? Like, you should have put the worst case 10-1. If they
Yeah,
if they lose 2 games on this schedule, then we need to have a legit conversation of what went wrong here, because there's no way you have this schedule and don't win 10 games.
but you know why? You know why I put 9-2? I'll say why I had worst case is, let's say you get to the Alabama State game 9-0, right? You lose that game, and then you go to the reservation and you get caught slipping.
Oh, that would be
after
brutal, wouldn't it?
after an emotional loss at Alabama State. That's why I said 9-2. Okay. And also the Grambling game. I know people are saying Grambling, but again, this is the thing. Funky, weird things happen.
You know what's crazy? Like hearing Jackson State fans even predict their own schedule. I've heard Jackson fans say, "I can't give us the win until we actually beat Graham." Like,
Right.
I
Said
think,
I
yeah,
respect
like,
this until we beat
yeah, like
Grambling.
I think all Jackson fans like should really be worried about is just get to the SWAC championship, and if you handle business in every other game outside of Grambling, if that's the voodoo, just beat Bama State and you're in.
She said they be cheating. She said they be cheating.
Listen, weird like, bro, you've went down there with A&M. Weird
Oh
stuff
yeah.
happens down there in Grambling.
Yeah, some bad. I mean, teams that we, when you look at Grambling, I mean, that Grambling game 2 years ago down there, turned the ball over 5 times. You outgained them double the yards, and you still lost by 21. I mean, that's just that kind of weird, crazy stuff that happens. That's a one-off that you just can't even wrap your mind around. Like, you're still, as a Jackson fan, you're still asking yourself 2 years later, how the hell do we lose to that team in that manner?
And then last year you had the situation where it's like your starting quarterback gets hurt. You hurt their quarterback on the last drive. And it was a horrible situation. And then they have a quarterback that like hasn't thrown a pass in a year come in there
And
and
didn't throw a pass.
yeah, it did throw a pass and he just runs into field goal range and they just happen to crush the field. I mean, dude, it's just God, man, like I don't. This is why I say the streak ends this year is because Wayne. Even if I went to like Chat GPT and tried to come up with a better script on how Jackson's going to choke that game away, I can't come up with anything better than like what's happened the past 2 years. They got to get it. Like there's nothing else funky could happen. Well, we've seen it all in the past 2 years.
Exactly. And yes, and also, yes, yeah, he fumbled. He did.
Yeah, 1000%.
He did fumble. But again, you're making my point for me, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I said. Weird stuff happens when you play Grambling. And so if you guys can get past that, I can believe that you can be undefeated. But again, go ahead.
Can you imagine if South Carolina State gets through? Like, and we have that type of matchup where it's like 11-0 Jackson and like an 11-1 South Carolina State.
Well, at that point, it would be 12-0 after winning the SWAC title.
Yeah, 12. I mean, dude, that would be, dude. Talk about just the headlines. And I will say the one, like, because we've talked about everyone else's question marks, and I love the portal class, but there still is question marks for Jackson at the end of the day. Yes. And I think it starts with the edge rusher. And man, I have harped on this point so much, and I respect Quinn as a DC, so I'm not calling his coaching out. But when they started dropping Quincy Ivory from the edge spot and bringing them into coverage, man, they had nobody that could go get the quarterback. Like, literally nobody that could go get the quarterback consistently. And that's one question mark for me is I do like some of the edge rushers they brought in. And I think the dark horse, the guy they need to step up is Carmelo Jones. And I know technically everyone knows that he's a Mike linebacker on the roster, but he's going to play edge. He played a ton of edge last year. If you go back and look at the film, he's like 245-ish, 6'2". If he can go get the quarterback, and this defense goes from like pretty good to elite, and that's really what separated, I think, last year's Jackson team from being a SWAC championship team is their defensive line outside of Jeremiah. Jeremiah was elite, all-American level player. I really do think that the defensive line took a step back last year and they didn't have a guy that to go get the quarterback. And that's what hurt them. And then the other thing is I know they brought in talent, but man, at the end of the day, like Nate Blunt could have all the potential in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, he is going to have to show me we need to see it. And I think the scheme is very running back friendly that Jackson runs. And even if he's not elite, right, they run a scheme, Wayne, where they should have 2 500-yard rushers. Just if you got me and you back there, like that's the type of scheme they run. And so I think he'll be fine. But at the end of the day, what happens if the rush game does take a step back? Like, how does that affect the offense? And is Jared Lockhart in his first full year starting ready to carry the load if they're not as consistent running the football? And so that is something. And they do have 4 new starters on the O line. So you have all new running backs, 4 new starters on the O line. I think there is. And the good thing is, play Tennessee State, so it's a good measuring stick, right? Then you go into 2 D2 games where you get to get all the kinks out and everything, and you get to reload for Southern. And so I do think the schedule sets up really nicely for them to figure out their question marks first. It's not like PV where they might have question marks. You got to go play freaking Tarleton on the road. It's a lot different like that. But Jackson's schedule sets up perfectly for figuring out their flaws. And then once we get to the 26th of September, we need to be ready to roll.
That's it, man. That's really where it's at. So that's where I landed here on the East. I've got Jackson State winning the tiebreaker, be it a head-to-head, beating Alabama State. And then you see as it progresses. Like I said before, Valley, they're going to get somebody. Don't know who.
Well, 1-7. Yeah, put some respect on Valley, man. We need 1-7 there. But I'm with, like, it's funny. I think it ends up just like that. Like, I think this division is too good for everybody to finish undefeated in conference. I think both Jackson and Bama State finished 7-1, and it comes down to who wins that game in Montgomery. And I already got my hotel booked. I'm there for that game. That's going to be the game of the year in the SWAC. And I think it's going to come down to that. The question mark here is like, where's FAMU? Like, are they at 5-3, 6-2? Do they tie with A&M at 4-4? Can Quad stay healthy? Can they push up to that third spot? But I think very clearly it's going to be Valley and Bethune at the bottom here in the East.
Yeah, and so that's where I got MEAC champion. We got South Carolina State championship game in the SWAC. I got Jackson State over PV. I got Celebration Bowl. I got South Carolina State against Jackson State. That's what I got.
Did you pick the Celebration Bowl?
I didn't. I'm leaving it right there. I ain't going that far.
I feel you. Who do you think hosts though? Because like I think we said like PV is going to be 7 and no, you have PV undefeated in the SWAC.
7-1. Yeah, both will be 7-1. So yeah, he said who will host the SWAC championship. So based off of the way I see it, knowing the tiebreakers situation like I do, I think Jackson State will still get the nod.
I think so too.
It. Yeah,
I think they would. Now, if the interesting thing would be is if PV loses those out of conference games and then runs to the SWAC, they finish 8-0, then it would be
in Prairie View. Mm-hmm.
That'd be super. And then also, I don't know how the tiebreaker would work if because Jackson would have the tiebreaker over Bama State in this scenario, but I think it's overall record at that point. But what if it's like head to head? Because the team that they both played was Bama State, and they would both have a win. So I don't know. I don't know what it would come down to. I think Jackson, though, in that scenario, it would go to overall record. And I think.
Yeah. Because, man, I spend all that time in November. People be asking me 63,000 times about the scenarios. And, I just post it.
Well, so, it's because of those non-conference SWAC games where, like, people don't know if these damn games count. Like I almost had to check myself today. You were like, A&M only beat this team in conference play. And I'm like, didn't they beat Alcorn? And I was like, no.
Yeah, it wasn't a league game. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, man, there it is, man. We've gone through the entire gambit. Everybody, what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend some time here after we wrap up. I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure I put the chapters in there. So if you want to go back and you want to look and see what we said about any team, you can definitely do that. Blue, this was an awesome time, man.
Facts, man.
I want to make sure that I get some time, we get together during the regular season. I don't care if you want me on your show, I'll be there. I can get you on this. We can do whatever, man. We're going to do some work during the regular season too.
Yeah, I'm down, man. I think we need like a recap show or something. Like we got to collab a little bit because I think people like this. I mean, dude, I think we got almost like 300 people watching right now, man. So shout out to everyone that tuned in, man. I appreciate you having me, man. It's always fun on here, man, because we keep it strictly football and I think we break a lot down. It's fun.
Yeah, man. I definitely love the fact that we keep it football. We got no emotions in this. We got no bias in this, and we just really just want to make sure that everybody understands these rosters, understands the way this stuff happens. Because this is different in this day and age, man. You got to really work hard to stay on top of this stuff. Because as you saw, even what you said, there are guys who were on the roster probably last week who aren't there now. So things happen.
Just go ahead and get ready, because I've talked to 2 MEAC GMs and a few SWAC people, and if this class of 2022 stuff actually holds up, might as well have the show again, because there's going to be a few people coming back that I already know, that are already confirmed.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, man, appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you like the stream, subscribe, tell others about this show, man. We really did the thing tonight. And also shout out to Zoe. I know he had something going on, but we'll get you back, Zoe. I'll get you on here. We'll get with you, Zoe. We know what Zoe was probably gonna say anyway. He probably was gonna be like, you know what? You're right about Jackson State.
Shout out to Zoe, man. Just got married this past weekend, man. So shout out to him and his new wife, man. I just want to give a shout out to him. I know we had a great time in NOLA this past weekend.
Yeah, man. Big shout out to Zoe, man. He joined the fraternity. So yeah, for Blue, Zach McKinnell, and Wild Wayne, man. I'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next time here on The Ride.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed this trip on The Ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As our time together comes to an end, please hit the like button, hype this video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, stay up to date on all upcoming episodes, and you can watch all of the past shows. So until we meet again, it's HBCUs today, HBCUs tomorrow, and HBCUs forever.